39BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Well, hello, everyone. We have made it to Training Camp Week 2024. What do you think should be the Bills' immediate focus when camp opens this week? First practice is on Wednesday.
Mike Danger.
We've got our running shoes on, and we're ready to go. And, of course, the Sports Bar will be live. We'll have all of your player interviews. Brandon Bean stopping by, I'm sure. We'll give you all access to what we're seeing, what we're taking in at St. John Fisher University for Buffalo Bills training camp.
Gene Battaglia.
You should have a smile on your face, optimism. You're excited about what's ahead here for the fall and everything. That should be the attitude of your team and your fan base right now. Most fan bases excited. Now we can kind of focus on the fun stuff, the stuff that you actually tune in for.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
A very good afternoon to you as we welcome you on into the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us and listening along at 95.7 FM, AM 950. We sound our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app or on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. And don't forget about the video stream. You can watch the Sports Bar as well. We're streaming live on our YouTube channel right now at The Fan Rochester. Also streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester. Buddy, we made it through the summer doldrums. It is training camp week, and we are ready for Wednesday.
Bring me football. We are ready. All this news starting to come from her. I feel like we're kind of getting off to a late start here in Western New York when I'm seeing, hey, there's this team. Mahomes throwing this pass.
Oh, did you see it? Yes, of course. Oh, the sweet music that is being made at training camps far and wide. I mean, when you see a highlight, all I think to myself is, yeah, Mahomes makes that pass in practice because he knows he's not getting hit. He can make that throw with great ease because he's not getting clobbered. The pressure isn't there.
And I'll say what Hall of Famer Mike Catalana said. Nice defense. Like, there's so many different things you could pick apart, but this is how hungry we are. It's like the football fans that have been walking through the desert, and here is this oasis, and you're ready. And maybe this isn't the delicious 5-course meal, but you're hungry, you're thirsty, you're ready for football, and bring it to us. A lot of Bills football coming up this week here in the Sports Bar.
We're going to start talking about it as soon as today, as soon as later this hour. We'll be joined later this hour by our buddy Alex Brasky of the Batavia Daily News and Bills Digest, the Right Here, Right Now podcast as well. Brasky stopping by at 3:25.
Like Kyle Brandt going into the Batavia Target, is that like one of the best things that's happened to Batavia in a while?
Okay, let's slow down.
No, I'm just saying, though, like that's got to be big, though, for them.
It was a big deal. MafiaCon was a big deal this week. I mean, saw some highlights. It looked like it was fun.
It's good, perfect timing, right? Get everybody a little bit warmed up for camp here.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk to Brasky about his thoughts heading into training camp. Gets underway. First practice, of course, coming up Wednesday morning from St. John Fisher University. We'll also stop by with a conversation with Dan Fates, 13 Wham Sports, BuffaloPlus.com. Fates, he's stopping by at 4:25.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of these camp battles, just kind of get his temperatures. Now it comes into focus, like what will be our day one storylines coming up Wednesday. Actually, Danger, it used to be we would get news on Tuesday. Like, before McDermott came in, hey, the Bills are reporting today, and everybody would do their press conferences, and here are pictures you'd see on the 6 o'clock news of so-and-so bringing in a television or whatever it be, the players moving in. No one is allowed on campus except, employees and players and whatnot on Tuesday. So we got to wait until Wednesday for all the news portion of this, but kind of keep in mind, a lot of these guys are already here getting the work in right now.
I'm sorry. I'm a little distracted. You have somebody looking over your shoulder. I don't know who that is, looking over Chuck Muncie's shoulder. If you're watching the video stream right now, as they clear out one of our studios here, that's a cardboard cutout of insert female country artist. I have no idea.
It's a little creepy because whenever you turn the corner and it's coming out of a dark studio,
you see,
yeah.
So I guess a new addition to the video stream?
See, what's going on here, Radio Central, High Falls Studios, We were the first ones to move. How about that? The sports bar. We moved across. We got our new studio.
We're the guinea pigs.
Yeah, we got the flat. I'm not complaining. Flat screen TV, beautiful, more space. Danger. I love this. Now comes the rest of construction, but where we just kind of move studios, like this is legit construction. Like we're going to be hearing drills and hammers and everything going on. Yeah, so I don't know how that's going to impact the show, but if you hear something weird like that sounds unusual, well, beginning tomorrow, they're going to knock out that studio across and going to make it one big conference.
Okay, so a little bit of construction behind the scenes here, and as we're cleaning out empty studios and conference rooms, who knows what we'll unearth, including cardboard cutouts of female country stars.
So now we're even, because when we were last in the sports bar on Thursday, I was completely sidetracked because I picked up a call, and the call was, Gene, this is Greg.
Yeah.
I'm right outside.
Yeah, one of our regulars.
I'm right outside.
Just going completely creepy on us, saying, don't look out your window. And we got Muncie bombed.
Yeah, and of course, what do? The professional that I'm not. I go, I run out. Danger's like, what are you doing? I'm making a point. Greg is.
Don't look out the window, boys.
All right, no. Can you forgive me? I don't know if I can, I know that's a
You need to
cardboard
move
cutout.
it.
Yeah.
You need to move it. It is distracting. I'm distracted by, Gene, do the right thing. Move it. Get it out of here. Because that thing, bring it in the studio. Do you want to bring it in the studio, like long-term, make it a part of a permanent fixture? No, Gene doesn't want it. Gene doesn't want it to be a permanent fixture in the studio, so he's going ahead. There you go. Throw it back where it came from, where it once came. Very good. We're back. We're back.
We were trolled by Dan DeLorean.
Yeah, I mean,
he's doing the manual labor out there, and he's laughing in the lobby. Thanks, Dan.
All right, so the table is set there. Dan Fates, 13 Web Sports, BuffaloPlus.com, Alex Brasky, Bills Digest, Batavia Daily News. We will talk Buffalo Bills football this afternoon, all in preparation for the start of camp coming up here on Wednesday. You can pull up a stool and join us at 866-4326-585-8664-FAN. You had a good weekend, I assume?
I did, and forgive me.
This is our final weekend without football, right? Like this last weekend was like, all right, let's breathe in the fresh air. Let's take it all in because we know when football season goes, we're going.
Yeah. When you and I take flack sometimes for our pride in the West Side. So with that, I say this, Danger. I was an East Sider last night.
Hold on a second.
I was an East Sider.
Hold on a second, pal.
Over to
they
Barrington.
Don't let your type in on the east side of town.
Well,
okay?
that's why we showed up right at the end. They didn't check our ID. They didn't check where we were from. But the town of Barrington does this free concert series. So the executive producer, being the big Eagles/Steely Dan fan that she is, says, we're going. And I'm like, okay.
Is that the venue that's like on a hill?
Yes.
Yeah, I know where that is. That's a nice little outdoor amphitheater.
Right.
On your way to Fairport High School, right? If you keep driving.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that was
good space.
Yeah, good space and perfect night to do that. And lo and behold, you can have a fun night on the east side.
You just roll up with a couple of lawn chairs. You throw down a blanket.
Put them down. Yeah.
A couple of lawn chairs. Watch. Are you allowed to bring a box? Did you bring a box of wine?
I saw somebody sneaking in a few of the kinds. So, but it's Sunday night, so that's why I just played it straight last night.
Sunday night, you can't have you can't enjoy a glass from a
Bota
box.
You could,
box.
You could, I suppose.
Oh man, that sounds delightful. If you sneak in a box of wine with a couple of lawn chairs, and you got the smooth sounds of an Eagles or Steely Dan tribute band, I'm in on that. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. And then Friday, my gosh, I haven't seen you since Thursday.
All right,
so,
we took a long weekend because we knew we got to soak it all in.
Yeah.
Friday night, little gathering at my brother-in-law's house. Got to meet a lot of his extended family. That was an absolute treat. You know what? I'm an advocate for the Friday night party. The Friday night party feels like you've extended your weekend. If you're having a weekend party, aim for Friday night. Friday night feels like you extend your weekend. You wake up on Saturday thinking it's Sunday. When it's actually Saturday, you start feeling, I've still got a whole weekend in front of me.
It depends on the party. Like if you're doing a kid's party and you want to fit it into a window, Sunday's the way to go. Sunday, 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, the grad party on a Sunday, knowing that people they gotta work the next day.
Let me tell you, since you brought up grad parties, one of my neighbors this weekend threw the mother of all grad parties. The mother of all grad parties. I mean, believe me when I tell you, you could hear this grad party through most of the East Tilton neighborhoods.
Yeah.
In my part of town. There was lights. I'm sure there was probably a smoke show going on. The sound was like 11:30. I open up the back door and I'm listening. I'm like, still going strong. Really, really, really like Darude Sandstorm, Zombie Nation, like stadium anthem sound. It was like loud and still going strong late. The mother of all grad parties.
I don't think in your neighborhood, check that. I do know one woman in your neighborhood that might say, no, this is not right. It's
somebody called the cops on them, I heard.
The
word on the street is the cops got called on them early on for the noise because it was loud. Early on, to which they were like, yeah, okay, whatever. It's a grad party. And I think in their instance, it was their youngest grad party. So when you have multiple kids and your youngest finally graduates high school, maybe that's cause for a larger celebration. They went all out. I mean, and I heard, through the grapevine, some of the stories of what was going on and the aftermath of said grad party. Yeah, that was a Saturday night party that would have you wishing that you were going back to work on Monday because you don't want to deal with what you have ahead of you on Sunday as you're waking up from that grad party. But yeah, that sounds like fun. What you did last night. We had our party on Friday, a little family get together, and then I'm not gonna lie, a good chunk of my weekend was spent with an Xbox controller in my hand, playing college football 25. Man, I love it. It is so much fun. It's ridiculously detailed, and I don't even have an allegiance. I don't even have an alliance. The closest thing I have is my niece going to Penn State. And so I'm sitting here because the first thing it'll ask you, and you could go through this exercise yourself, Gino. First thing it asks you is, what is your favorite school? Before you can even play the game, it asks you, what's your favorite school? Now, I picked Penn State because my niece goes there.
Yeah.
But when I'm playing Dynasty mode, where you're trying to build up your program as a coach or a coordinator, you can pick any school you want to pick. I went with Florida State. I have a soft spot in my heart for Florida State from when I was a kid. I always thought that was the coolest college. Like, I remember wanting to go to Florida State.
You and I can't be friends. Like, Florida State's going to destroy the ACC. I mean, they're in progress. They are going to send Syracuse into
a lot has changed. A lot has changed since Coach Prime was playing for Florida State, and I think that was part of why I fell in love with. Like, they were just so much fun with Coach Prime there. Everybody has their own experience of how they played. It's completely customizable. It's so much fun. My head coach's name is OG Burf.
There you go. A Bear reference.
Very, very obscure Bear reference. What would your school be?
Well, you know.
Would you do Fordham?
Of course, but can I actually do that?
Are they Division I?
They're in the subdivision.
No.
So no, you can't do subdivision. And then I can't do St. John Fisher.
No.
Come on. See, there's room for improvement because
you can import. I think you can import teams and customize teams. I think there's a way to do that. So maybe you could create a Fordham team and then kind of like.
See, that's what I would love to live in an alternate reality where I'm the AD and I'm helping to build the program. And
you can. That's what this game lets you do.
Yeah, I would want to do it at Fordham or St. John Fisher. I give Rochester an actual Division I team.
I'm actually more consumed with recruiting players than I am with the actual game play. The actual gameplay where you're playing the game.
Oh, so
it's
this
really
is
about
okay.
recruiting players and recruiting kids to your program and saving the players that want to go in the transfer portal and picking players out of the transfer portal.
Closest thing and again, I am not a gamer, okay, but I did this with my son, the QB1 on Madden.
Oh yeah,
that's fun. So this is the QB1, except You're now in charge of
Yeah.
the program. You're
QB1, I'm guessing, is where you create your own quarterback.
You're
or
the
your
own
player.
quarterback, and you're coming out of college, and you're going through the combine.
And
all
you can do
stuff,
that with
yeah.
this, too. You can
Yeah.
create your own player here and become whatever you want to become as a player. I don't know. I spent more time on that than I care to admit. I'm a little ashamed of myself.
All right. You cannot be Kyler Murray. We've got camp shows coming up later in the week.
I might be a little sleep deprived. Nah, that's not true. I got up early this morning. I'm feeling good, Gina. Don't worry. Unlike me in my 20s and 30s, I know my limits now. I know that staying up until 4 a.m. to play a game maybe isn't it's okay when you don't have to work the next day, I suppose. But I wouldn't do that on a school night or a work night. Come on.
When do you and I as dads actually get the day off the next day? Because please tell me when that will.
Yeah. Well, it's a good point, Gino. It's a good point. All right, so we have the table set. We're looking forward to Wednesday. We do have a couple of different storylines occurring right now in the NFL with camps starting to open up. And I think the biggest one that maybe has people's attention is what the Packers could be doing with Jordan Love. It's not a holdout. It's a hold in.
Yeah. Who had this on their radar? This is supposed to be like the feel-good team, right? Hey, the Packers, they did it the right way. They drafted the quarterback, withstood the criticism, and drafted young pieces around them, kept the head coach, and voila, made the playoffs. That's a team you can be excited about next year, Mike Danger, competing in a respectable division.
Do you know how much he was set to make this season?
I do not.
I do. And when you hear the number, you'll be like, oh, that's why he's looking for a new contract. 10.5.
Okay.
10.5?
Yeah.
10.5. And you got your team to the divisional round of the playoffs. I mean, you basically had a prove it deal, like an extension that was like a prove it, right? And 10.5 this upcoming season, nah. Jordan Love is due at least a 100% salary increase. He should be at least a $20 to $22 million quarterback. At least he should be getting $20 million per year.
So they did some cap gymnastics last year where a lot of this was spread out, 8.7 signing bonus. His base last year was $1 million.
Yeah.
$1 million.
Right. Go out there and prove it, kid.
Yeah.
Good
so
luck.
This is like Deshaun Watson, except you're not getting the massive bonus. Well, they should have taken care of this a long time ago. They couldn't figure this out. And you should always take care of your quarterback. You should always be ahead of it. And we can take this from the Green Bay standpoint. I think it's all going to be fine. I think they're going to work it out. He's there. What does this mean for one of the rivals in the AFC East of the Buffalo Bills right now? Like, is Tua looking at this, and I'm sure they've discussed this, he and his representation, that, this is something that maybe we should look at. Why do we want to risk another injury or another concussion or whatever it is until we get our deal?
He should. I don't know that he will. The Tua thing to me feels like it's doomed to fail. Like they're either going to overpay Tua or they're going to let, he's going to play this season and be gone next year.
It's the latter. I mean, they, from day one, where they tried to trade for Deshaun Watson, where they literally tampered and cost themselves a first-round pick because of Tom Brady. All of a sudden now, hey, 2 thumbs up with Tua. Tua went from this, oh my gosh, he was overdrafted, to a sympathetic figure because they were yanking him around and treating him the wrong way. Then they bring in McDaniel, and they prop him up, and they have this amazing roster in terms of speed, but that's only going to get you so far. Like Tua wilted last year. He did. It's a fact. That whole Dolphin team wilted. It was all in front of them. All you had to do was beat Buffalo on Sunday Night Football in Week 18.
I mean, I'll give them credit in building a roster that suits Tua's skill set. He's not a great downfield passer, but he can hit guys in stride underneath and in short distances and let them use their speed for bigger gains. I mean, if you're Tua, do you do a hold-in? Do you do the same thing that Jordan Love is doing in the hopes that you get yours? There are a handful of storylines around the NFL that when you're going to they're going to impact the early part of training camp. They could impact the preseason. They're certainly potentially going to impact how you're drafting them for fantasy football. I mean, the Brandon Ayuk thing doesn't have any sort of resolution tied to it just yet.
Well, you could say that they'll get signed, but I will say this, that if there is one thing when you're not getting yourself in football shape, these guys are all in shape, but they're not in football shape, meaning, hey, you want to avoid the soft tissue injuries. And quite often these guys that are out there, I remember T.J. Watt a few years ago, like all of a sudden you pull a hammy or whatever it is because you're not getting the reps.
That's right. So worth paying attention to. And the other story at the quarterback position, not really a story on the field, more of what the coach has said about his franchise quarterback, and that's in Baltimore, where you have John Harbaugh basically saying that Lamar Jackson's goal should be to be the best quarterback of all time. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah, he and his team take the slights personally. Like, okay, what are the slights? Like, please fill me in when it comes to Lamar Jackson. He's won 2 MVPs. These MVPs are not – they're voted in on by people who cover the league, are they not? Yes. Yes, they are. So where are these slights, if they're real or they're imaginary? Well, the slights are when we're talking about the postseason, Lamar isn't quite there. When you step up the level of competition, when the lights are brightest in the postseason, Baltimore hasn't gotten where they needed to go. Like if John Harbaugh would be here, I'd be like, and that's not a fair criticism? And then he would probably pivot to something else. Here's what's going on. He is propping up his guy because probably Lamar hears that. Don't you think he hears that? Like, hey, you can't win the big one?
Last we saw Lamar Jackson, he was pretty frustrated, throwing his helmet around, losing to the Chiefs. Nothing was working. And he wasn't able to get over on Kansas City and get back or get to his first Super Bowl. So there's a couple of things that I think to myself. One, John Harbaugh could be, yes, this is what needs to be said because we need to boost the confidence of Lamar Jackson. We need Lamar Jackson to believe that he is the best player in the NFL. He needs to believe that at all times in order to be the best version of Lamar Jackson. The other part of it is that I think is maybe it's the opposite. Maybe he's saying it to put this pressure on Lamar Jackson, to make Lamar Jackson feel a little bit of heat so that Lamar Jackson goes into this season not comfortable, not complacent with the fact that he has a couple of MVPs and no Super Bowl rings to show for it. Maybe, to second Bear reference in the first segment, maybe he's Joel McHale in the Bear. Maybe he's the guy that's over Lamar's shoulder telling him he's not good enough and he needs to be better. And Lamar's hearing it all and saying to himself, yeah, I got it. And deep down inside, it's eating him up that he's got a coach who really is trying to push him and motivate him in ways that he's just not comfortable with.
Danger, I think I'm going to simplify it. I think it's just the fact that every coach, McDermott included, they're not thinking about the postseason. They can't talk about the postseason. Whatever Lamar has done or hasn't done the postseason right now in July is not relevant. It's not relevant in August. It's not relevant in September. All John Harbaugh wants to do is have the best camp possible, set yourself up in the preseason, and win week 1. And then you start stacking wins from there. And then when you get to when you cross that bridge, when Lamar Jackson, if the Ravens get back in, and I expect them to, at some point maybe he breaks through. Funny thing is, if it's not for the 13-second game, you look at Josh Allen's stat line in that game. It was fantastic. Are we having a certain conversation about Josh Allen in that regard? Because the Cincinnati loss was bad. The Houston loss, well, he was young. Okay, that's fair. Last year, Chiefs could have done more, certainly in that postseason. Josh Allen, he's not on the Lamar Jackson level by any stretch, because in the Patriot win in the postseason, fantastic. Perfect, you could say. The Chief game with 13 seconds, not his fault. Should have won that game. But other than that, though, there's room for improvement for Josh Allen in the postseason.
Yeah, there is. I just think that so much of a quarterback's play is tied to their confidence. And the thing that we might complain about with Josh Allen, the hero ball, or the trying to do too much or trying to force throws, that all comes from just being so confident that you believe you can make these plays that seem impossible. And I don't know how you coach that. I think it's probably easier to coach somebody to be confident than to coach out the confidence out of somebody. You could. I mean, I suppose if you're Robert Saleh, you wrote a textbook on how to coach the confidence out of your franchise quarterback. See Zach Wilson. You need that confidence. They need to have somebody in their ear telling them that they can be the best ever. And for Josh Allen, I mean, I think he probably already believes that he's there. I think, you don't have to look very far to find quarterbacks that tier it's a short tier. It's Mahomes, it's Allen. Maybe it's a guy like Jackson. Certainly Burrow is in that tier as well. You have your guy, basically. And when you look at a team like Miami, do they have their guy? Feels like they do. Their actions don't align. Green Bay has their guy. They just got to get that worked out.
Two Bear references in the opening segment. Danger's ready for part 2 of season 3.
I am, man. Get it to me.
All right, no, real quick. I like season 3. I thought
it's like
everybody's done. No, it's about character development. That's what it is.
It's not bad. Every episode, it felt like every episode was geared towards defining the tertiary and secondary characters a little bit more. And I'll say it. The Fex saved season 3 for me. They were fantastic. Hilarious. Like, for anybody who says it's not a comedy series, no, it's a comedy series. There's moments of levity in that series that when you see them and you hear them, you're like, oh God, that's pretty brilliant. It's not bad. It's just not as good as season 2. We had high expectations.
It's not designed to be, though.
That's right. Let's get to Alex Brasky, the Batavia Daily News, Bills Digest. He's going to stop by next. We'll preview Bills camp coming up Wednesday here at St. John Fisher University with the Sports Bar live. You're on the Fan.
You're listening. Sports Update.
Buffalo Bills players and staff starting to trickle into the Flower City with a report date at St. John Fisher University coming up tomorrow. Dan Bates 13 Wham on camp here in Rochester.
I know Sean McDermott loves it. It really has been a perfect partnership, and I think the players enjoy it since they've shortened it. I think going through this 2-week period works well for all sides.
Dan joins us next hour. We'll talk to Alex Brasky, Batavia Daily News and Bills Digest. He joins us next here in the Sports Bar. One game of the majors, they're in the 8th, and the Yankees are up on Tampa 6-1. Anthony Volpe and DJ LeMahieu both homering. Mets finishing out their series tonight down in Miami. Rochester Red Wings, they're back home coming up tomorrow night when Lehigh Valley comes to town. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Neat or on the rocks? It's the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
We'll preview training camp gets underway Wednesday at St. John Fisher University, the Buffalo Bills. Also, Alex Brasky, Bills Digest, Batavia Daily News, stopping by the Sports Bar now. Mafia Con. Brasky, you were in attendance. Tell me a little bit about what went down here at this inaugural event.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Good to talk to you. Good to have training camp upon us here in your city, the Flower City. But yeah, Mafia Con, great event in the city of Buffalo, hosted by 26 Shirts and Wester, also Total Sports out there participating as well. Del Reed really headed everything up, and Bills players, Bills fans filing into the Western New York Heroes Event Center on East Delavan, and really a great event. Got a little hot in there. It was a hot day on Saturday, and a lot of people packed into one spot, but it was all for a good cause. All the proceeds went to the Punt Pediatric Collaborative, so it was really, really a nice event put together by Wester and 26 Shirts, and happy to be a part of it. Talked some Bills, gave our 53-man roster projection to I and AJ Sobolski, my coworker at the Batavia Daily News, on the Right Here, Right Now podcast. So a productive day on Saturday and a great way to ring in the new year, as Gene told me when he called me for this interview.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, Alex, your summer's over, mine's over, but for football fans, this is it is like Christmas. Alex, and I did see that you and Alex somehow came up with the same 53. When you're going over the exercise, you're getting down to the end there. What were the biggest question marks here? Is it's fun to kind of compare entering camp when you're leaving camp, how close you got it. But were there any difficult decisions when you're going through the exercise, coming up with the 53-man roster?
Yeah, I think the most difficult thing for me to decide was how many wide receivers are they going to keep. I think this year could call for 7 wide receivers. Typically, you see the Bills keep 6, but with the transition at the wide receiver position and without that bona fide number one target, looking to kind of spread the ball around and do it by committee this year, I think there's a chance that they might keep 7 wide receivers. I did project 6 with Chase Claypool pulling off that final spot. You have Shakir, Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman, Matt Collins, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who I view as roster locks heading into training camp. Really 1, maybe 2 spots left up for grabs. If they do keep 7, I think KJ Hamler sneaks in there due to his return ability. It was also difficult to project the back end of the secondary at cornerback. You have guys like Jamarcus Ingram, Cam Lewis, Daquan Hardy. I wonder if all 3 of those guys will make it. It seems like Cam Lewis will, but whether or not they'll keep Jamarcus Ingram and Daquan Hardy. Usually see them cut Reed Ferguson during training camp and then welcome him back after someone's placed on the IR. They do some final decision-making. So a few tough decisions, but primarily cut and dry this year. I think a lot of the positions on the Bills roster have been decided, particularly the starting roles. You look at the team as a team in transition, but with so many players at the top of the depth chart coming back, I think expectations are still high for this group.
Alex, since you brought up KJ Hamler and him potentially making a roster spot for himself with his return ability, is there anybody else on the roster, on the current roster, before cut-down roster, before the final 53, that you think benefits from the new special teams rules, the new kickoff rules, the idea that the kickoff is going to look like something NFL fans have never seen unless they happen to watch the XFL, and how that might
might project into who could make this team, who has a special kind of skill set that could help in that phase of the game?
Yeah, Hamler definitely stands out to me as that player. I think he hasn't done a lot of returning in the pros. I think maybe a handful of returns with the Broncos years ago, but he did do it in college with Penn State, returned punts and kicks. So definitely some experience there, albeit a few years ago. I think he benefits from the new rule. Like I said, I think if they keep 7 receivers, it will be because they want him to stick around because of what he can do on special teams. And I already mentioned Daquan Hardy at the cornerback position, an undersized player, probably on the outside looking in terms of a role on defense. I don't see much of a role for him there. Maybe a backup to Taron Johnson at the nickel corner spot, but at the same time they have Cam Lewis, who they like in that role. So maybe Daquan Hardy benefits from that as well. He's got some return experience, primarily doing punt returns, but maybe we see him sneak in there for the competition for kick returner as well.
We're talking to Alex Brasky, Batavia Daily News. You can also catch him on other platforms as well, the Right Here, Right Now podcast. And if you're in Wegmans, pick up an issue of Bills Digest. Alex will certainly be covering a lot of Buffalo Bills football on different platforms. Alex, what's our expectation for Von Miller? Honestly, this is like, as far as storylines, I'm looking into the future on Wednesday, and are we seeing Von out there? And we're back to normal. Or are they going to bring him along slowly? And even if he is out there, I don't know what to expect because, look, he did the right thing by taking less money, but to me, if they get anything out of Von Miller this year, that would go a long way on this defensive line.
Yeah, I think it's really an unknown what to expect from Von Miller this year. The results are kind of wide-ranging, expected results. Some expecting him to do nothing as he did last year. Some expecting him to return to somewhat of his form of yesteryear. But I think it's tough to project entering the season. I think if you were to ask me, he's going to participate in really a pass-rushing specialist role, maybe a bit beyond that. I think you'll see Greg Rousseau and A.J. Epineza out there as the primary pass rushers for this team, and then Von Miller mixing in as the number 3 option. I think he's best suited for that type of role at this point in his career, and especially early on in this season as he's trying to reclaim that form. I think maybe taking baby steps with him and trying to urge him to get there. But yeah, I think it's tough to project what you are going to see from Von Miller. I think somewhere between 5 and 8 sacks, if he gets anywhere in that range, I think you're relatively happy, especially considering the 0 that he was a season ago. But you're going to have to start seeing some signs from him early in training camp during the preseason when he's out there, if he does participate. This is an important offseason and preseason for Von Miller trying to reclaim that form. So I think you're either going to see signs of it or not signs of it over the next few weeks here at training camp.
Alex, you've had the chance throughout the course of the offseason kind of take in some of the offseason team activities, and let's face it, a few years ago nobody had Christian Benford showing up to St. John Fisher and making a name for himself, and now going into this camp as your CB1. Is there a player on this roster that nobody is talking about, that we will be talking about even more so a week from today, let's say?
Yeah, you have Christian Benford. He's really been talked about quite a bit during this offseason. Damar Hamlin received a bit of conversation during this offseason, just with him coming along during OTAs and minicamp, so maybe him a little bit underrated going into camp. But I'm really excited about Dwayne Carter. I know the Bills using that mid-round draft pick on him certainly points toward him having a contributing role. He seems well beyond his years in terms of maturity, and I think he can really become a contributor, and they want him to become an immediate contributor on this team. You have Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones at the top of that position on the depth chart, but you're really looking for that depth behind those two to fill out better than it did last year. Jordan Phillips and Tim Settle really disappointing, and you're looking for more from that position this year with the way the Bills rotate their defensive tackles. I think Dwayne Carter, as training camp kicks up here, I think he's going to be more and more talked about as a rookie that's going to burst on the scene.
Of these positions, Alex Brasky, right off the top, you mentioned how a wide receiver you'll be paying attention to. And if there is something that becomes available later in camp by free agency or trade, Brandon Beane does have just a little bit of room, I suppose. But is there one position on this team right now? Maybe the answer is wide receiver. Maybe it's somewhere on the defense here. But is there one position right now that you might be a little concerned about, Alex?
I'd like him to add an edge rusher. I'd like to see, in addition there, you have that money left over from the post-June 1st release of Tre'Davious White, and that's the biggest question mark, I think, for me entering this season is how is this group of edge rushers going to produce? I talked about Greg Rousseau and A.J. Epineza, two players who I think are going to be at the top of that position group this year. Rousseau, a disappointing season last year, dealt with some injuries, got out-sacked by Epineza, while Epineza played 20% fewer of the snaps on average than Rousseau. So Epineza trending, I think, in the right direction, while Rousseau is kind of flatlined here after a solid start to his career. A lot expected out of those two, but I think beyond those two, it's even bigger of a question mark. You have Von Miller, who, like I said, is 0 last year. Dwayne Smoot, a 4 to 5 sack guy in his past, but coming off some injuries, really unknown what to expect from him this year. And then you have Javon Solomon, who led the nation last year collegiately in sacks, but what is he going to do at the pro level? So I think beyond Rousseau and Epineza, and even with those two, there's some questions. You really don't know what to expect from this group, and I think adding a veteran player, as you saw the Dolphins lose one of their veteran edge rushers and immediately go to the free agent market, I think that's something the Bills might want to pursue here as training camp goes along.
Hey, I want to go back to a name you mentioned kind of in passing as far as a guy who was receiving some talk this offseason, and that's Damar Hamlin. Did he make your final 53, Alex? Do you see any way where Damar Hamlin isn't a part of this roster when cut-down day comes?
I don't. The way that he performed this offseason and with the inexperience at that position, he came in as our fourth safety behind who we expect to be the starters, Taylor Rapp and Mike Edwards. You also have the draft pick, Cole Bishop, who a lot are expecting to challenge for a starting job, whether it be in training camp or as the season progresses. But I think Damar Hamlin is your safety valve here in terms of the experience at the position. I'm not sure he's as much of a safety valve in terms of what you can rely on him in terms of his on-field production, given what we saw from him last year. But just knowing this system and being a sounding board for these players that are relatively new, like a Taylor Rapp just experiencing 1 year in the system, Mike Edwards coming over from free agency, Cole Bishop his rookie season. I think having Hamlin there is valuable for this safety unit, and I think Coach Sean McDermott also looks at it as valuable, just knowing how much importance he puts on his safeties in this defensive system and how much the safeties have meant to this team over the years. You look at Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde and how they really came on under McDermott's tutelage, and I think having Hamlin there, someone who knows the system like the back of his hand, I think his position is relatively locked up. The only way I could see him not making the roster is if Dee Delaney really has a great training camp in preseason and somehow outdoes him for that fourth spot.
So, Alex, you have 4 safeties on your final 53 then?
That's correct. Taylor Rapp, Mike Edwards, Cole Bishop, Damar Hamlin.
Now, I don't want to push back on what you're saying a little bit, but I'll hear what you're saying. But wouldn't the fourth guy be somebody that can not only play that position but also can play other positions? They love their versatility. Is there a case to be made that Cam Lewis would make this team before Damar Hamlin would?
We also kept Cam Lewis. We classified him as a cornerback in our final 53, so a little bit of discrepancy there depending on who you're talking to, putting together these final 53-man rosters. But, yeah, I think Cam Lewis's versatility, I think, also opens the door maybe a little bit further for Damar Hamlin to make this roster.
Alex, are there any other day one storylines? I'm going to offer up one here. For us that haven't covered the mini camps or anything else, I want to see how Bobby Babich kind of runs things as the defensive coordinator. I mean, he's always been kind of a presence. So how much of a storyline do you think that is, and what other things should we be paying attention to coming up Wednesday?
Yeah, I think he and Joe Brady. I know Joe Brady might not be as new or as inexperienced in this role as Babich will be, but I think paying attention to both of these coordinators is something I'll do throughout training camp and the preseason. It'll be interesting to see if Sean McDermott relinquishes play calling duties on the defensive side of the ball and if Babich will assume those duties or not. I think that has yet to be decided, even though McDermott hasn't divulge that information. Sometimes you make that decision behind closed doors and you wait to reveal it. I think they're truly waiting to make that decision and see if Babbage is comfortable in that role during training camp, during some preseason games. So I think that's really when you'll be wanting to keep a close eye on that once the preseason games start and once you see Babbage out there with the headset on, interacting with his players during a game situation. But, yeah, that's one of the top storylines for me. I think entering camp, like I said, a lot of these starting positions and really a lot of these positions on the roster have already been decided. I think something that's been undecided is how Babbage will fare in that role and how this team will work under Joe Brady having a full off season to install his offense and how they'll fully transition into his kind of identity on that side of the ball.
Alex, I'm curious. I mean, we'll watch practice and, we'll take away what we can take away from it, the players who make plays, the players who don't make plays. But the thing I'm going to be paying attention to is who's bringing the juice that we kind of saw year in and year out with Steph Diggs at camp. And will Josh Allen be a guy who brings some of that juice? Will Josh Allen be a guy who gets on his receivers if they don't make a play or if something doesn't go his way? Do you think that that's in his DNA? Do you think we'll see that on display at all here during their time at Fisher?
Yeah, I'm glad you bring this up. This is something I've been thinking a lot about this offseason, where the leadership and what you termed the juice is going to come from this season. And I think it starts with those two coordinators, Joe Brady and Bobby Babbage. Those two have been widely discussed by many players as the most energetic coaches that they've ever played for. But if you look in terms of the Bills roster, yeah, I think Josh Allen is going to take a step forward in terms of his vocal leadership on the field, having some veterans that were here even before he was drafted to the Bills and having them part ways with the team, whether it be release or the trade of Stephon Diggs. That opens the door for Josh Allen to really spread his wings in that regard. But I also think you'll see some new faces take on that energetic role, namely Mac Hollins at the wide receiver position. He's really an interesting character. You'll see him walking around barefoot more often than not at training camp. And just the energy that he brought during OTAs and minicamp was something to behold. You could hear him from probably East Aurora, the way that he was acting at training camp. But, yeah, I think he'll bring the juice. You have Josh Allen obviously coming back in a newfound, maybe not newfound, but an increased leadership role. And another under-the-radar player. Look for Zach Davidson, the tight end, a great personality, great dance moves after touchdowns, somebody else who really brings the energy on the practice field.
Alex, we had a celebrity sighting in your hometown. So in Buffalo on Saturday night, Good Morning Football's Kyle Brandt throwing out the first pitch, but then he's not flying back. He's driving back. And, of course, if you're driving back, you're going to take the thruway. And, hey, you got to make a stop. You're stopping in Batavia. There he was at the Target in Batavia. Is that like the biggest celebrity that's come through in some time here, Alex?
Maybe this summer, yeah. But, Gene, by no means are we peasants here in Batavia. We get our fair share of big names coming.
I love how Gene asked this question as if Rochester is somebody that should be looking down on anybody.
Right. I heard that in the open of your show today, and I was like, wow, Gene, you really think that little of us here in Batavia that we're going to get excited about?
Not at all. It's got to be kind of cool.
Gene, Alex, here's how you answer the question. This is definitely the biggest celebrity sighting we've had since Gene Battaglia called Batavia Blue Devils high school football in the 2022 season.
Absolutely. We're still waiting for his return, and maybe we can get him out to the great sites here in Batavia. We have Target, Chipotle. It sounds like Kyle Brandt really took in the sites here.
Yeah, look, Vendetta Stadium. It's one of the best in Section 5.
It really is.
It is really a nice stadium.
It's beautiful.
Oh, the best. The best.
Alex, gosh, on all your platforms, and everybody is hungry for Bill's content. Tell everybody what they can go check out is where we have the lead up here to Wednesday.
You can follow me on X at Alex Brasky, also the Batavia Daily News at thedailynewsonline.com. That's our website. All of our Bills content, myself and AJ, we're going to be producing it fast and furious over the next several weeks and months, so be sure to check that out. Also, Bills Digest, we've released our training camp preview edition. Really the most work I've put into a Bills Digest edition since I took over before last training camp. A lot of information in there, a lot of writing over these past few months to get us ready for training camp. So be sure to subscribe, or like you said, Gene, pick it up at Wegmans. Also the Right Here, Right Now podcast, and we'll have plenty of those coming out throughout training camp. So appreciate you letting me plug all that stuff.
Alex, appreciate you stopping by the sports bar today. We'll see you at the media cafeteria. We'll share a turkey burger on Wednesday.
Looking forward to it, boys. We'll see you there.
All right, thanks.
There he is, Alex Brasky. You could read his work at the Batavia Daily News, Bills Digest, the Right Here, Right Now podcast.
Is the 53 a tough exercise? Maybe we'll tackle that tomorrow. But I have this thought, and I'll drink to that. I'm not as high on DeMar Hamlin. I see you smiling. I think he's a question mark to make this team.
I know. It's so funny. It's such a cold business, isn't it? I mean, like, you think about everything that this guy has been through and everything, like he's somebody that's viewed, I'm sure, as a leader, not just in that locker room, but in the community. And we're going to have the conversation about whether or not he belongs on the final 53. And I think it's a fair conversation to have.
We have to do this in the context of these are real men with real families. Yeah, cut them. Honestly, it is got to be, for any coach, the toughest part of any profession.
The good news is, if you're DeMar Hamlin, I think you're no longer just defined as a football player. Like, you have a higher calling at this point in your life and career, where if the worst thing were to happen to you is that you're getting released by the Buffalo Bills on cutdown day, you've still got a very, very bright future ahead of you in terms of how you can impact people's lives.
If he doesn't make it, that's a big story, right? Like, that's a news story.
It's
that's
a story.
Not, that's a story on your favorite news outlet. Like, oh, remember this guy? Yeah, he's now not a Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, it's definitely a story. We'll also, this weekend, I don't know if you saw, there was a couple of basketball games that I think were of note this weekend. One was the WNBA All-Stars beating Team USA. I kind of like that. The other was the almost loss to South Sudan. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, South Sudan? What? How did Team USA almost lose to South Sudan? I'll explain.
To be confused with North Sudan?
Yeah,
what are we doing?
It's just like, what? Okay, these Olympic tune-ups have everybody kind of scratching their head. We'll get to that along with Dan Fates from 13 Wham Sports, BuffaloPlus.com. He'll stop by at 425. We have time for your calls as well at 866-4FAN, 866-4326.
IBF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Starting to feel like football season as players reporting to St. John Fisher University tomorrow. ESPN's Ludus Riddick says most wonderful time of year.
The dead period between the end of mini camps and then the start of training camp is just the worst time of year in the world for all of us who are just fanatical football fans. This is the best time. This is like Christmas month. You know, this is like December, and now you're just waiting for Christmas Day when we kick off week one. How cool is that, though?
We'll be talking to 13 Wham's Dan Fates. That's coming up later this hour. Yankees win big today over Tampa 9-1. Juan Soto with 2 homers. Anthony Volpe and DJ LeMahieu also going yards. Subway Series resumes tomorrow night. Tonight, the Mets are in Miami. Sports brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Half off to Lasertron in Henrietta. Gene Battaglia in the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Well, hello, everyone. We have made it to training camp week 2024. What do you think should be the Bills' immediate focus when camp opens this week? First practice is on Wednesday.
Mike Danger.
We've got our running shoes on, and we're ready to go. And, of course, the Sports Bar will be live. We'll have all of your player interviews. Brandon Bean stopping by, I'm sure. We'll give you all access to what we're seeing, what we're taking in at St. John Fisher University for Buffalo Bills training camp.
Gene Battaglia.
You should have a smile on your face, optimism. You're excited about what's ahead here for the fall and everything. That should be the attitude of your team and your fan base right now. Most fan bases excited. Now we can kind of focus on the fun stuff, the stuff that you actually tune in for.
95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
I literally have my running shoes on today, too, as a matter of fact.
Oh, I have my Jimmy P's on, I call them.
Ah, the Jimmy P's. I got a compliment on my Jimmy P's at the family function on Friday night. You're walking by and see me wearing my Jimmy Patso shoes, my Under Armours, and she's like, "Wow, those look like they just came out of the box." I'm like, "You like those? Fresh, fresher than a coat of wet paint. Those are my Jimmy P's." I had to explain how our buddy Jimmy Patsos is an ambassador for Under Armour, and every time we talk to him, "Guys, give me your address. I'm going to send you some shoes." Jimmy, you don't have to twist our arm on that one. They're
Jimmy
fantastic.
he is a character, sure.
I do actually have my running shoes on, and we are looking forward to Bill's training camp coming up on Wednesday from St. John Fisher University. We'll be live every day that they're practicing out there at St. John Fisher. But, Gino, you said something going into the break that I'm sure has a lot of people wondering, like, huh? What? We were talking a little bit about Damar Hamlin and whether or not the Bills hold on to Damar Hamlin, going into this season. Does he make the final 53?
I think he has to show something. And by show something, maybe it's a preseason game. Maybe he's making a big hit. Maybe he's making a big stop here. But, look, wide receiver, that's a position group that I think we'll all be watching first and foremost. But there is another battle that has my interest, too. Not one, but 2 safeties up for grabs here. It's the first time in the McDermott era we don't have Poyer and Hyde, of course. And, they'll start with the veterans, Taylor Rapp, Mike Edwards, Cam Lewis still here. I know Alex Brasky would talk to had him as a corner, but
he's everywhere.
He's
the idea
special.
that you could play him everywhere, I think, almost guarantees him a roster spot.
I think he's on this team. And then you got to work in second rounder Cole Bishop. Like, if Bishop shows something at Fisher, I think he wins that job sooner than later. What about Damar Hamlin? He fits into that rare category on this team. If you told me he's a starter, Danger, I believe it. If you told me he's not going to make the team, I could see it. Like, how many other players fit into that category right now? All this being said, doesn't feel like it's enough. I'm sorry for what we're used to. And there's one lingering issue. Maybe lingering isn't the right word. But it's a storyline that we kind of forgot about. It hasn't been resolved. And if you get a bad day out of the secondary, and trust me, you will, whether that's a preseason game or somebody looks out of place, people are going to be asking, wouldn't it be great to have Micah Hyde back there, if nothing else, to teach these kids? Look, Hyde hasn't retired. The Bills haven't shut the door. I can't say this is happening. No, of course not. But the best thing that can happen for this position group is that we don't go to I wonder what Micah Hyde is doing card.
Yeah, that'd be a good question if we get Brandon Bean on Wednesday.
where are you at with Micah Hyde? Because I don't know. I mean, with the way Micah Hyde's career ended, I just feel, the way his playing time with the Bills ended, I should say, because his career technically isn't over yet. I would say, God, I for his own personal health, I would say no, don't come back. Retire and enjoy your life. You can, you got a lot of years ahead of you. If you want to coach, you can coach. If you could do a lot of things if you're Micah Hyde. But one thing I'd be worried about is him going back out there and risking further damage to his neck.
So why hasn't he retired?
Yeah, that's.
I mean, I guess that's not a question for Brandon Beane, but smart on Beane. Like they haven't closed, nor should they.
Yeah, I feel like you have to. If you're in Beane's position, you have to play out every scenario. You have to constantly keep your mind open to what could actually be done. And I agree with you. I think the thing that the best thing that can happen to this secondary is we forget about Poyer and Hyde by the end of the preseason. That it's not even a thing. I mean, those guys do their jobs. You don't even have to worry about them. You don't have to point a finger and say, "Oh, Rapp was out of position," or "Oh, well, what's the rookie doing back there?" Like, no, if everything goes well this preseason, you go into the season with your secondary solidified, and you don't even you forget about Hyde, you forget about Poyer until you see Poyer again against Miami. Is that a guarantee? Is it a lock that he's making that team? I mean, like, these guys are at the end of their careers. You're telling me that Micah Hyde right now isn't better than DeMar Hamlin?
I think Poyer, these guys are freaks, Poyer amongst them. And I look at Poyer and I think, well, that's somebody that got a late start in the NFL because Cleveland didn't know what to do with him. And then basically, like, we want to make fun of Doug Whaley. Okay, sure, there's things to make fun of, but he's the guy that brought in those two safeties. It wasn't McDermott. It was Doug Whaley. And for Whaley to identify that's somebody from another team that really we could use here, maybe there is somebody that kind of rises up out of all this. That's also the fun part of Camp Danger, that we're going through the exercise. All right, if 56, maybe we can get it down to 53. There's going to be somebody is not on our radar right now that's going to pop, and that's what's going to make this great.
Also, I like to think about, well, could there be a trade? Could you see a player of value be traded for a third-round pick, second-round pick, whatever it might be? I mean, remember Wyatt Teller being traded and then thinking at the time, no big deal, your offensive line spread. Wyatt Teller's like one of, if not the best guard in the NFL today.
Yeah, and on the other hand, the Bills had, was it Eli Anku? I got to look this up. They traded for Ryan Bates.
Yeah,
Rick Bates. Like, that was a trade from Philadelphia. Like, wow, that worked out pretty well.
Kyrie Elam is the name that I'm thinking of right now. Like, if it doesn't work with a new coach and Kyrie Elam doesn't show signs of improvement.
But what are you getting, though?
I really don't know. Former first rounder. I mean, corner is a position that you would think that teams would need. So if they're pumping up the tires for Kyrie Elam, like they have been so far this offseason, are they setting themselves up? I don't think they should or can really move on from Kyrie Elam, because you're going to need a Kyrie Elam at some point. Unless your plan is to bring back Josh Norman for, a stretch run. If you want to bring back Josh Norman, I'm sure he'll take that call if you're Sean McDermott. How do you think Kirk Cousins is feeling going into his first training camp with Atlanta? And I was just thinking about this, the wild ride that was his offseason here. If you wanted to recap, the Vikings were more than happy keeping Cousins on their roster this season, but they expressed their desire to draft a quarterback in round 1. So Cousins left, and also left because Atlanta was offering more than what Minnesota was offering. But he leaves Minnesota only to see the Falcons do exactly what the Vikings wanted to do. And now, and again, that guaranteed money Cousins is getting from Atlanta, I'm sure helps him sleep at night. But my what if here is, what if J.J. McCarthy doesn't work in Minnesota? It's not a lock, right? I mean, you have a couple of seasons with J.J. McCarthy, and it proves that it's not going to work. The Vikings could very well be, once again, in the market for a veteran quarterback, and the best available veteran quarterback in a couple of seasons could once again be Kirk Cousins.
Lot here. I'm just going to bring up, what if, you're bringing up the what if here with the Vikings. What if Sam Darnold figures it out in Minnesota? Like,
and McCarthy doesn't see the field?
Well, or he's putting up numbers and he's keeping McCarthy at bay. I think that's possible. Let's look at the career arc of Sam Darnold. Bad team. Buried in I'm not going to write Darnold off, but Kirk Cousins, compared to Buffalo, like Brandon Beane, you may not agree with some of his moves, but you have to admit this: he does business the right way. He's transparent. He's straightforward. This is the opposite of what happened in Atlanta. Like Kirk Cousins, if Atlanta said, you know what, we'd like to sign you, but we could draft a first-round quarterback, I don't think he goes to Atlanta. I think he stays in Minnesota.
Right, because this is partially why he left Minnesota. Like Kirk Cousins might have a little bit of that Ryan Tannehill in him that, yeah, it's not my job to train my replacement. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, so when we talked to Thor Nystrom, and that's like a take of the year nominee, like just Donahoe, like is that the guy's name? They're Fontenot.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like he should be fired. Because even if the Falcons get to the playoffs this year and everybody keeps their job, we go to free agency next year. And if you're an agent on top of your game, be like, yeah, whatever the Falcons are telling us, you can't take it at face value. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they lie all the time. Thor Nystrom, take of the year nominee for firing Fontenot in Atlanta.
The guy who's running that room, Terry Fontenot, he does that every single year. He just torches assets. This is the fourth straight year that they've had a top 8 pick. In those 4 years, he's taken a tight end, he's taken a running back. Now he's taken a guy who will be a multi-year backup quarterback, and by the time he can finally get a chance, his rookie contract's going to be done. He's going to be closing in on 30. Terry Fontenot, in my opinion, should have been fired on the spot. I think that there's a really good chance that he has overseen his last draft process.
It could be ugly in Atlanta.
Bring it to me. This is honestly, like all these other camp stories, whether it's Green Bay and what are they doing with Love, Dallas, like Buffalo, okay, everything's going to be peaceful, just the way they kind of like it. Oh, already getting a head start here, Danger. Chiefs camp. Here's the lead here from ESPN's Adam Teicher. I'll just read it verbatim. The connection between Patrick Mahomes and Xavier Worthy established itself in the first full squad practice at Kansas City Chiefs training camp. Mahomes completed a deep post pattern to Worthy for a touchdown during the team's first 11-on-11 drill. The play sparked hope among the Chiefs, and it's the first of many similar connections.
That's the caption that went with the video.
That is literally I'm reading that from Adam Teicher on ESPN.com.
Wow.
And the video is up there, and wow, that might have just been written by Chiefs PR.
Have you seen the video at this point? If you haven't seen it, just a quick description. Mahomes rolling out to his left, and he's able to set his feet, and he just launches a Scud missile. This thing, it goes 80 feet up in the air, and it's a teardrop, and it just boom right into the basket, and there's Xavier Worthy catching it right at the end zone. Touchdown. It's a beautiful pass, a nice catch over the shoulder, and it's this kind of thing that when you see it, you're like, whoa. It does. It makes you do that. But
if it were a game, we'd be like, whoa.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, look, I know for Bills fans, your eyes are rolling, you're groaning, reading that, hearing about this. It's only day one of camp. Don't overreact. Just hope for some Mad Libs here. What do I mean? Let's play Mad Libs, okay?
Let's play Mad Libs.
Okay,
you remember
so,
Mad Libs?
Yeah, Mad Libs, okay? So, this from Bills camp, courtesy of ESPN's Alina Getzenberg.
All right, hey, let's do this properly. If we're gonna play Mad Libs, I'll play the part of Mad Lib. You fill in the blank, okay?
Okay.
All right. Go ahead. It's day one of camp. All right. From insert team name here.
Bills
camp, courtesy of insert beat reporter.
Alina Getzenberg.
The connection between insert quarterback
Josh Allen
and insert wide receiver
Keon Coleman
established itself in the first full squad practice at
Buffalo Bills training camp at St. John Fisher University.
Insert quarterback
Allen.
Completed a deep post pattern to insert wide receiver
Coleman
for a touchdown during the team's first 11-on-11 drill. The play sparked hope amongst the insert team name
Bills
that it's the first of many similar connections. I got in so much trouble with Mad Libs when I was in grade school.
Like the biggest trouble I got into was with Mad Libs. Some kid brought in Mad Libs, and I kind of filled it out. You know how my mind works.
Who got a hold of that then?
Oh, the teacher got a hold of it.
How old were you?
Second grade? Third grade?
Oh, my gosh.
Second grade? Third grade?
Was your father the one that would whip you? Well, or like, not literally, but like you had to be concerned going home or be like, son, let's play some video games.
I mean, my thing was I never want to disappoint anybody. Like, the thing that gets me down is if I've done something that's disappointed somebody. I'm never, like, worried about, oh, boy, I'm going to be in trouble. I'm more of the, oh, man, I hope I didn't disappoint this person. And my old man couldn't say anything because I learned it from being around him. Like, it's who he was. He did this. He did what we do. He talked on the radio for a good chunk of his career. So we had similar kind of, our minds melded. And even as a second or third grader or whatever it was, I couldn't help myself. So the Mad Libs get passed around and I go blue. And the teacher gets a hold of it and is like, what the hell is wrong with this kid? Yeah, Mad Libs. I think you can still find Mad Libs, by the way, in the aisle at Wegmans,
my gosh,
right?
Are you kidding me? Like the ride to Cape Cod. Kids are still playing this and they're teenagers.
Your point is well taken. The point is, insert any team you want to into this highlight, and you could say the same thing because every practice will have at least, I mean, as a Bears guy, I'm hoping that we see some Caleb Williams to Roma Dunze sweet magic from practice that we can talk about and overanalyze and be like, oh, my God, this is it. We've made it. No, come on.
Look, there's going to be video Wednesday night of Josh Allen to Keon Coleman on an out pattern or whatever it is. You're going to be like, yeah, that's going to work.
Yeah.
They made the right choice here.
Yeah. Speaking of making the right choice, I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about the WNBA versus Team USA All-Star game there, where the WNBA All-Stars beat Team USA like the youth won out. That was fun to see. Did you see Team USA almost lose to South Sudan this weekend? South Sudan?
We're talking about the men.
Yes, the men.
Oh, boy.
Did you know that in the last 5 years, Team USA has actually lost 9 times?
9 times.
I didn't really need to bring that up. I just wanted to play the ball.
9 times, yeah.
That's no knock on South Sudan. They actually have some players on their team. Look, we shouldn't be shocked if this collection of stars gets challenged on their road to the gold medal. If you're like me, you expect dominance like we grew up on with the Dream Team, you can go ahead and blame that same team. Because if Team USA struggles in 2024, look, face it, LeBron, he's not the best player in the world anymore. You could argue it's Jokic. And if you wanted to say it's not Jokic, maybe it's Luka. You could make the case for SGA. You could make a case for Giannis. None of those players are playing for Team USA. Should they win a gold in Paris? Yes. Will I be surprised if they don't? No. Much like Team USA in women's soccer, the rest of the world has caught up because of how popular that original Dream Team was. It expanded the game to a point where now it's coming to the detriment of our homegrown product.
Oh, if we lose, this would be the worst ever. I mean, honestly, have you looked at this roster?
You could argue that this roster is more talented than the original Dream Team in 1992.
Yes.
And it may not be enough.
Yeah, Durant, Edwards, Embiid, Curry from the outside. You have Devin Booker. How about some muscle with Bam Adebayo? Drew Holiday as your defensive specialist, and you have old man LeBron. Hey, Anthony Edwards, I thought this was supposed to be your team.
Yeah.
Didn't you step up and say, hey, this is going to be my team?
Old man LeBron, by the way, going to be the flag bearer for Team USA during the opening ceremonies.
Good for him. Because you know what? We got to give him more honors. Because
just appreciate him. I think you'll be appreciating him as he's walking into the stadium holding the red, white.
It's Team USA, really, there's no outcome that we'll all feel good. They're going to beat up teams, and we'll be like, that's what you were supposed to do. But then if they win close games, we're like, oh, my gosh, what is wrong with these guys?
Right. We expect dominance, and I think the reality is that the rest of the world has kind of caught up a little bit.
It's also true that there is a little bit of a learning curve without Lane. I mean, the rules are a little different for international play, but my gosh, it's not that different. They should win the gold, men and women. They don't, something's terribly wrong.
All right, now I feel like we should have a little huddle here before we get to Dan Fates from 13 Web Sports and Buffalo Plus. Gino, I want to lay down some ground rules here, some non-negotiables. Another Bear reference.
Hold on. No. We laid down ground rules. I'm not. Wait.
No hanging up on our guest.
I think we've established. I'm not going to run him off.
Making sure.
But he's Mr. Negative. He is Mr. Negative when it comes to his Atlanta Braves. So he's not going to want to talk about baseball. Look, they're snake bit. They've been another injury, another two actually. Freed on the IL. Albie's out for 8 weeks. Look, the Mets. They're hoping for the split with Miami tonight. I don't feel good saying that. Long season.
It is. There's
long season.
A lot of baseball left to go.
But I'll point out to Dan, who's right in the wild card mix there, bud.
Oh boy, here we go. I would prefer you don't do that.
We invited Dan on not to talk about
That's
baseball.
right. That's right. We want to get a Dan's take on the Bills heading into camp, who he might see making this final 53-man roster, what storylines he's looking into, looking forward to seeing unfold firsthand starting Wednesday. Dan Fates from 13 Web Sports, BuffaloPlus.com. Our guest next on The Fan.
You're listening to the Sports update.
I feel like training camp over at St. John Fisher University. Players and staff starting to trickle in as tomorrow's report day. The first practice coming up on Wednesday. Dan Bates, 13 Wham, says it's a perfect fit here.
I know Sean McDermott loves it. It really has been a perfect partnership, and I think the players enjoy it since they've shortened it. I think going through this 2-week period works well for all sides.
Dan joining us next year in the Sports Bar. Yankees win big today over Tampa Bay, 9-1. Juan Soto with 2 home runs. Anthony Volpe and DJ LeMahieu also homering for New York. The Subway Series resuming tomorrow night. Tonight, the Mets are down in Miami. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Get half off to Lasertron in Henrietta. For this and other great deals, log on to GetMyPerks.com today. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan, Rochester.
Pull up a stool and join us. 585-866-4FAN. 866-432-6. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Bills camp opens Wednesday, St. John Fisher University. Players reporting tomorrow. Dan Fates, 13 Wham Sports, Buffalo Plus, go with his time and joining us now with his preview. And Dan, just to get you in on our conversation that we've been having here this afternoon, and we look at this roster and try to make our early projections of what the final 53 might look like. Where are you at with Damar Hamlin? Is he a lock to make this team?
Yeah, I think he's actually got a good chance to possibly nab one of the starting safety positions. I really do. We just got done taping a Buffalo Plus podcast that will be up on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. And they were asking, we kind of said like, hey, there's no Poyer, there's no Hyde. I don't think it's crazy to sit there and say the starting safeties could be Taylor Rapp and Damar Hamlin. I really don't. Again, I think we need to get past the dying on the field and the cardiac arrest and going back to the football player that Damar Hamlin was when he filled in for Micah Hyde. What was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and he had 90-something tackles. Like, this guy can still play football. That's kind of on the back burner. And him just getting back on the field, I think, was, you talk about overcoming an injury, whether it's physical and then mentally getting back on the field. And then Damar played really well in OTAs and minicamp. Had a couple of interceptions. I thought he was flying around the field looking like the Damar pre-cardiac arrest. So I think he's a lot to make the team. I think he's got a decent chance to win a starting spot. I really do.
Look at that battle at both those safety positions here, and I think in the perfect world, you invested a second-round pick. You want Cole Bishop as a starter, but knowing the difficulty of that position, and in particular the Sean McDermott defense here, what is a realistic timeline for Cole Bishop to come in and play meaningful snaps? Is that midseason? Is it next year? Could he win the job week 1?
Yeah, I think it really is a three-headed race. And Mike and Jenna were just talking, we were recording the podcast, they think Mike Edwards could be the guy to line up alongside Taylor Rapp. And I haven't seen anything of Mike Edwards because he hasn't been out there. He's been dealing with injuries this offseason, so we haven't seen him. And let's not act like Mike Edwards was some Pro Bowler on these last 2 teams. He was a backup. That spot started. So it's not like they absolutely went out there and broke the bank to sign Mike Edwards. So that's why I think this is wide open. And to your point, Gene, like, it is a tough system. And we have seen guys, especially on the defensive side, kind of get like a learning year. Like, I think about what Terrell Bernard was his first year. And he talked about how big the playbook felt and how when he got into one game, he's like, my head was spinning. And then he comes back the next year and wins the starting job out of training camp and then plays absolutely phenomenal. I think that's kind of what we saw, or what kind of happened with Dorian Williams last year. I think the guy's got a massive ceiling. He flies around the field. Athletically, he's a freak. I don't think he really understood going from a Tulane playbook in college to a Sean McDermott defense. So I would like Cole Bishop, if he comes out and runs away with this job. I think he's got he's going to be in the race. But I think that maybe the expectations of understanding this complex defense, we've seen guys like Kyer Elam have kind of struggled to get it at times, right? So let's temper expectations this year for Cole Bishop, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to be the starter next year or be a guy that can have an impact.
Dan, every year it feels like there's somebody who emerges out of camp, or especially early in camp, a name that you know is on the roster as it stands right now, but their play is kind of elevated. I mean, we didn't
talk a lot about Christian Benford heading into that training camp, and he's now your cornerback one. Is there somebody that you've identified on this 90-man roster, 91-man roster that you think could be that person here during training camp at Fisher?
Guy that could stand out a little bit, or a guy that you think could all of a sudden
a guy that
make an impact?
Yeah, a guy that could not just stand out, but be somebody that makes an impact. That we don't like. We look at some of these names of some of the draft picks this year. I mean, even like a Daquan Hardy, somebody like that where we look at. All right, I'll just say it point blank. Kyer Elam struggled last year, and I know that they've kind of made some adjustments to try and make life a little bit better for Kyer Elam within this organization going into this season. But let's face it, I mean, if the guy doesn't show up at camp, you still have an opportunity maybe to get something of value for Kyer Elam, a former first-round pick, if you believe a player like Hardy can maybe step into that role as your third corner on the team. Is there somebody like that you have seen through the course of the offseason that might surprise some eyes or might turn some heads and surprise some people here come Wednesday?
I like Dwayne Carter and what he can provide. He was the third-round pick out of Duke, but he's a defensive tackle. So, I don't think he's necessarily going to wow you. I think he can find a nice role in this defense and in the system with rotation with Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones in some of those pieces. Somebody's going to emerge as an edge rusher, because we just talked about on the podcast, I'm not sure what we're going to get with Von Miller. And that's probably one of the biggest storylines is what is a successful season going to be like for Von? And as of right now, I think A.J. Epinesa may be a starter. And I'm not so sure I'm sold on A.J. Epinesa being a starter on the opposite side of Greg Rousseau. So all of a sudden, if Von is 35 years old, coming off the ACL and all those things, I think we may see some guys flash in camp, and I can't think of a name off the top of my head, but somebody that we haven't heard of because it's new faces on the defensive line, whether it's Kingsley Jonathan or some of those guys that all of a sudden we're going, hey, you might be able to, pitch in 5-6 sacks this year. Those are the guys where I'm sitting there and I go, the top doesn't really wow me, if I'm being honest. The edge is as much of a concern for me, edge rusher, as it is wide receiver. That's how I feel heading into Fisher. So I think there are going to be guys that flash, and last year it was the guy from Denver, Ray. Sorry,
right. Yeah, I know who you're talking. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so he flashed for a little bit, and everybody's like, "Oh, this could be something," and then he got injured. So a lot of these things are going to be fluid, or where guys I think are going to pop at camp that may have a chance because everything's so open. We used to go to camp, guys, and the last few years, you could write with a Sharpie marker the starters and most of the backups at every position. I can only do that at a handful of spots this year. And so that's what is going to be – there's going to be multiple guys, to answer your question in a terrible way by me. I think there's going to be a lot of them.
Yeah, we're talking to 13 Wham, also Buffalo Plus. Dan
Ray.
Yeah, that's it.
That was the guy,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Von Miller's guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dan Fates joining us here in the sports bar. Dan, we're all going to gravitate to the wide receiver position regardless of the year, this year in particular. As we're trying to figure out, who may actually make this team at that position and who actually may contribute big time, is it just as simple as looking at who Josh Allen is throwing balls to as to who is taking the reps with the ones?
A good way to start, I'll tell you that much. And like I said, we won't be able to report on necessarily who went with the ones, and there's all these guidelines that we can't tweet or leak information, not leak information, report information we see. But it's no secret that Josh will throw to some people and Mitchell Trubisky will throw to others during warmups. And those are kind of things that stand out. For as well as Chase Claypool has looked during the offseason, all of the big passes he caught were from Mitch Trubisky. So having some of those guys, like Josh is always going to throw to MVS, he's always going to throw to Shakir, he's always going to throw to Coleman, and he's going to throw to Samuel, and then that fifth spot is going to be rotated around. Seen Mac Hollins get some reps with Josh, but we haven't really seen Chase get a lot of work. I expect that to change at training camp, but we used to go into training camp, and it was I remember even when there would be bad days, you still went, man, Allen and Diggs are just so good together. The offense could have a bad day, and you'd be like, yeah, but Diggs still made 3 awesome plays from Josh. And that's what we're going to have to replace and find. And we're not going to be able to sit here on July 22nd and say, this is the number one guy. I don't think the Bills have a number one guy. They're going to try and hodgepodge this thing together, and whether it's with a 2A, a 2B, and a 2C wide receivers and rotate around. I think there's 3 or 4 guys that could catch 600 yards to 800 yards. I don't know. I think we can all expect that, the tight end's going to be –
Kincaid.
Thank you. I am struggling right now. We just got done recording an hour-and-a-half podcast. My brain is mush. So Dalton Kincaid, we know, will lead the team in probably receptions and yards. But who's going to be the guy that, again, as I like to say, 3rd and 14 is the go-to wide receiver. Mike talked about who's the guy in 3rd and 6. They need to iron out some of those things to make defenses adjust. For whatever Stephon Diggs, whatever you want to say and your thoughts on him, he was a gravity player. Defenses adjusted and gave him extra attention. That attention is gone, and we're going to need to fill that around him.
Dan, I know we'll probably get our answers come Wednesday, but I'm wondering if you have heard anything based on what you saw in the offseason program here as far as the health of some of these guys. Mike Edwards, you mentioned earlier, certainly Matt Milano. We know Shakir got banged up a little bit at the end of mandatory minicamp. Do we have any concerns or worries that we're not going to see a full complement of Buffalo Bills on day one?
No, I'm actually pretty encouraged the fact that we got to see Milano in some respect during OTAs. The fact that we're not sitting here right now going, oh, when do you think Milano's going to get ramped up? Because, the last few camps, it was, when does Trey White? We know he's not going to start, but when is he going to be there? Is he, he's working off to the side. I expect Milano to be pretty much full go with individual drills, and then I imagine him being sprinkled in through team drills and 11-on-11 to kind of get him back up. But you don't need to rush Matt Milano. You know what he is. You know what he is. You know what his level of play and his expectation in this defense, knowing the system. Ray Davis is a couple of guys that I'm interested in because we just didn't get to see a ton of them. And Shakir seemed to be working out. I know that some people had some Instagram videos of him working out with Eric Moulds during the offseason after minicamp. So hopefully all of those things are checked off because, guys, there used to be it almost used to not matter at training camp these last 3 to 4 years, good or bad, because you went, if they had a bad day, you're like, you still know what to expect. It's almost like when you go to the same restaurant over and over again, even if the service isn't great, you're like, I still know the food that's coming out. Like, it's going to be good food because you had Allen and Diggs. And even though I wasn't a huge fan of Gabe Davis, you knew what you were going to expect from those guys. All of that's gone. There's a new chef, and there's only the main guy that's the owner running the tables anymore. So all of this is going to be ramped up, and especially on Joe Brady. It's like they don't necessarily have a ton of time to iron things out. Week 1 approaches quickly, and it's like you got to preheat the oven and get everything going now so you can hit the ground running because there is a new identity that needs to be developed. I know he ran the ball well at the end of last season, but this is still a passing league, and that is what a lot of the replacement has to come from.
Yeah, I know it's a passing league, Dan, and I know maybe you're not a fan of talking about the running back battle, but what's the place for Ray Davis on this team? Because, gosh, we talked – if we're looking at this through the fantasy lens, everything from, he's not going to get much to, hey, he's actually going to have more of a workload here potentially. Like, where do you think that kind of fits in? Is he really a 1B to James Cook? Because – the Bills draft him, unlike James Cook. James Cook didn't have any mileage coming out of him in Georgia. Like, Davis certainly seems ready to go here this season in his rookie year.
Davis is going to have to beat out Ty Johnson. And I was pretty high on Ty. What he brought in the passing game at the end of last year, I think Joe Brady used him really well. And he actually became the third down short yardage guy towards the end of the season, the way that he ran the ball between the tackles, I think they really liked. And it also alleviated some of the third down Josh Allen QB dives taking a beating. So bringing back Ty Johnson, I think, has kind of maybe been forgotten because of Ray Davis and his amazing story. And I think fans are already cheering for Ray Davis and rooting for him. But I think he's going to be much more in a battle with Ty Johnson than he actually is with James Cook to get those snaps. I think Ty and Ray are going to be splitting more carries than Ray and James Cook.
Dan, it's not the sexiest of topics, but special teams will look different this year. Saran Neal gone, Medikevich gone, and kickoffs are going to look different. If you're an NFL fan, it'll be something you've never seen before. Does anybody on this current roster gain an edge or a benefit to this roster, the final 53, if they make the final 53, because of what they can contribute to teams given this new kickoff rule?
Yeah, Danger, that's a really good question. And again, another topic we touched on, special teams heading into camp. I know this may shock you. I don't necessarily love to talk about things I know nothing about, although it seems like I can, and I do it often, what some people may believe. I have no idea how this kickoff is going to affect things. I always wanted there to be a kickoff because that's what some guys make their living on. That's how some guys make roster spots. So I always thought if you took that away, like, guys are losing jobs because, they put their bodies on the line flying down the field. Now, it feels like some of these kickoffs are going to be nothing, and then the other, it feels like it's going to be 50-50. Either it's nothing or it's going to be a massive touchdown. Like, I have no idea what to expect, how to handle the kickoffs, how to prepare for it. How do you practice it to some respects? We were talking about, obviously you're not flying down the field, but like to simulate that game speed of kickoffs is not really something they ever do during training camp. They all have just little pennies on. They walk down the field. They put their hands on a guy's shoulders, and that's it. Like, this is all new. Like, very rarely do we see NFL players doing something that they've never done before at this level. So I don't know. But I'll tell you this. Normally when they do special teams, that's when I go and get a Gatorade and reapply the sunscreen and kind of look at my phone. I will not be paying attention to this new kickoff rule when the Bills do that during those periods.
Yeah, Danger and I will sometimes just sit up, where we do our broadcast from in the Pelicano, and the only action you ever see really somebody might be on the jugs machine, and there's Tyler Bass, and he's trying to kick it over the roof there of the gymnasium, and sometimes he's successful, sometimes he's not. Do we have any concern about Tyler Bass? There's no competition for him, but you could say it was the holder, you could say it was any number of things, but sometimes it is witchcraft, and it kind of goes away. Any concern about Bass heading into this season?
Mike and Jenna had concerns going into that Chiefs game, and I said, no, he's fine. The Pittsburgh game was tough conditions, all these things in the playoff game. I was wrong. I can put my hand up and admit that. Tyler Bass seemed to hit a wall at some point last year, whether that's mental, whether that was mechanical, one of those things. I don't see the point in bringing in some training camp battle for a kicking position. There are 50 kickers that the Bills could sign week one if they don't like Tyler Bass, who could show up on Wednesday and kick on Sunday. Like, there's no reason to have two kickers take up a roster spot, in my opinion. Like, what you have with Tyler Bass. Hopefully Tyler Bass gets in a good rhythm, finds his drive back, as they say with a golf game, like find your swing, things like that. But to me, there's no point having competition because you could sign a veteran tomorrow that could kick in 72 hours. So I'm not overly concerned. I've kind of dug my feet in. I like Tyler Bass. I think he has the leg to kick in Buffalo and all of these things. But he's got to show me something, and I'll be keeping track of his makes and misses during training camp.
Dan, during his time in Buffalo, what we heard a lot about with Stephon Diggs during training camp was his juice, his energy, this juice that he brought to the team, to the field. He's gone, and I'm wondering if Josh Allen has that in him to kind of replace that juice, to be that kind of vocal leader now on the offensive side of the ball. Do you think that's part of his DNA, and or is there somebody else with Diggs out of the picture now that can step into that role and kind of motivate these guys on a play-by-play basis?
Yeah, another great question, Danger, because we talked about it. And look, Diggs is an alpha. Like, there's no question about it. And whether you say it's a diva or whatever, when Stephon Diggs walks in a room, you sit up straight because he's Stephon Diggs, and that's the level of intensity that he plays with. We've heard that from day one of how hard that guy practiced, and that he brought the energy of little things because of how much he competed. Deion Dawkins was on NFL Network this weekend, and he talked about how they lost juice and swagger with Stephon leaving. And he called him one of his favorite teammates that he's ever had. Like, I know fans are fed up with the drama and all the Diggs stuff, but don't let that cloud your judgment of what of a leader that Diggs was. Now, Deion also said that Josh has been more vocal this year. He's been barking more. Like, you kind of got to have that jerk in you, like for a PC word. Like, you kind of got to be a guy that can slam your hand on the table and say, this isn't okay. Like Brady had that, where it's like, this isn't working. Peyton Manning had that. Like guys where it's like, if you want to drop the ball, that's fine. I'm not throwing it to you. And Josh has this calm, cool, collected, your friend, your buddy. And that's fine. But sometimes your buddy's got to be the boss. And that's where Josh holds himself to a high standard. He now has to hold everybody around him to that same standard. And whether that's by being more vocal, and now he's in his 7th year, something like that, like all of a sudden you're putting on a different hat, because what you're missing is that leader that Stephon Diggs was. Whether or not you liked him and the drama and the tweets and all that stuff, I get it, Bills fans. I understand all that. But Josh has been the emotional leader by his play, by his intensity. Now you have to be the vocal leader. You've got to be that guy that can say, hey, this isn't acceptable, and this is why, and watch how we do it. And everybody's got to sit up straight now when Josh walks in the room, instead of dapping him up and saying, hey, buddy, oh, you're, this joking. Like, you got to be the dude now. That's what this team needs.
Hold on. Oh, somebody else went on the injured list for Atlanta, Dan. Sorry.
Have a good one, guys. Appreciate it.
Dan, I told him not to go there. I mean, you're our guest. You commit a lot of your time to joining us here in the sports bar. We're going to see you on Wednesday. I don't want things to get awkward or uncomfortable when the media cafeteria enjoying a turkey burger.
It's a compliment. You're still competing, yet all these injuries, Dan. I'm actually being nice to you.
Is this what it's like to be a Mets fan? It's just like they're not even fun to watch, the Braves. We scored 2 runs a game. We lost our best pitcher, our best hitter. We've lost our best defensive center fielder. We now lose our all-star second baseman. We are a shell of the team that we were. And that's why last year hurt so much. And that's why sports are awesome and tragic at the same time. Because when you get close, I was just expecting to roll it out there. This team will make the playoffs, and I'll be upset about it, because I don't want to see them lose and get shut out and lose some 1-0 game to the Pirates or something like that. Will just frustrate me. It's
well, you know what this.
Pete Alonso didn't win the home run derby, so I'm happy.
You know what this misfit across the studio from me wants to see happen, Dan. He wants to see Atlanta and the Mets somehow make it.
It's not going to line up that way because they're both wild cards. So like Atlanta, but to his point, if Atlanta gets the top wild card, oh, maybe it could. Huh. Dan, I'd sign up for that. I'm sorry. Look, come on over, buddy. I won't think anything less of you. We have fun. Grimace, we sing songs. It's all good. You are just like,
you guys
honestly,
are adorable. You're adorable.
They are, aren't they?
The sign is the dumbest thing. I'm all for celebrating, and I'm all for dumb antics. I like the Blue Jays. They have their home run jacket, all that stuff. The OMG sign is the dumbest thing in all of baseball.
No, we're exceeding expectation, Dan. Every Met fan is happy, and you're 4 games up on the Mets right now, and you're miserable.
This is going to be so
You're
much
miserable.
fun, Dan. Relay the message to Catalana that he did it again, and this is just going to be so much fun to watch down the stretch here.
Yeah, honestly, like, your misery brings me joy, so I just need that. Whenever your bullpen comes in the game, I smile a little bit, and a fairy gets their wings.
Dan, BuffaloPlus.com. We know you just recorded did you say an hour and a half long episode? Yeah. My goodness, man. I'm sure you guys covered everything in your training camp preview.
Yeah, 5 storylines heading into camp, answered some questions, and we each had a hot take, which I don't have any of those, so I really had to labor and to try and dig one of those up.
Was your hot take that the Bills will that Josh Allen will pass for over 5,000 and James Cook will have less than 500 rushing yards on the season, something along those lines? You don't really need to run the football in the NFL.
Right. I actually have. We've all made a bet. Tune in the podcast, but I think a guy that leads the team in receiving yards is not one that many people would expect. So I'll leave you with that.
Very good.
All right, Dan. Dan, see you at Fisher, buddy. All right, thanks, buddy.
Wednesday afternoon, we'll run into Dan at the posh media cafeteria with all the Bills media dignitaries.
Oh, it's McDermott speaks right off the top, and talk about how great it is back at Rochester and thanking Fisher and hope to get some good work in. Like, this is the way they want it. Like, when you compare what's happening in West New York storyline-wise, what involves any drama here? There's no drama.
I want to say it might be as low as 4 teams left that go away to camp. Something like 4, 6, or 7, something like that. It's not. It's a dwindling number.
There's I'll save it for shots coming up next hour, but there's one team that is going away for camp, and it's like on lockdown.
Oh.
Can you imagine, like, what would be the purpose of going away to camp?
Top secret.
Top secret,
Not opening it up to fans.
Yeah, not opening up to fans, nothing. It's like, oh, then why are we doing? Well, they have their reason, I suppose.
All right. Well, that's coming up in a round of shots. Happy hour is next. You can join us at 866-4326 if you'd like to pull up a stool. What are you looking forward to seeing on Wednesday when training camp hits St. John Fisher University? The Buffalo Bills are back in town. We'll get into that and more next. Alex Brasky, the Batavia Daily News, was great in the 3 o'clock hour, and we appreciate Dan Fates of BuffaloPlus.com and 13 Web Sports for stopping by. This hour, we'll have a reaction to what we've been talking about this afternoon from both of those gentlemen and more next on The Fan.
HD2 Rochester and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Buffalo Bills players and staff starting to trickle into Rochester. The report date at St. John Fisher coming up tomorrow. The first practice on Wednesday. ESPN's Louis Riddick says in the league, this is the most wonderful time of year.
The dead period between the end of mini camps and then the start of training camp is just the worst time of year in the world for all of us who are just fanatical football fans. This is the best time. This is like Christmas month. It's like December, and now you're just waiting for Christmas Day when we kick off week one. How cool is that, though?
One final in Major League Baseball. The Yankees win big today over Tampa Bay, 9-1. Carlos Rodon with the win. Juan Soto, 2 home runs, also homering Anthony Volpe and DJ LeMahieu. Subway Series resumes tomorrow night. Tonight, the Mets are in Miami. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Well, hello, everyone. We have made it to training camp week 2024. What do you think should be the Bills' immediate focus when camp opens this week? First practice is on Wednesday.
Mike Danger.
We've got our running shoes on, and we're ready to go. And, of course, the Sports Bar will be live. We'll have all of your player interviews. Brandon Bean stopping by, I'm sure. We'll give you all access to what we're seeing, what we're taking in at St. John Fisher University for Buffalo Bills training camp.
Gene Battaglia.
You should have a smile on your face, optimism. You're excited about what's ahead here for the fall and everything. That should be the attitude of your team and your fan base right now. Most fan bases excited. Now we can kind of focus on the fun stuff, the stuff that you actually tune in for.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
You know what I've decided we need in our new studio here, our revamped Sports Bar studio? We need one of those signs. I think we've talked about this before, but for a different thing. We need one of those signs that flips over when you have X amount of days without an incident.
Right. It always was when we would have somebody on the phone that would call me Danger or you, Gene.
Right. That doesn't happen as often anymore. I think when the show was early in its infancy, it happened quite frequently because you're still kind of figuring out who's talking and who's what. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia. We welcome you into the Sports Bar. We appreciate you listening. Locally at 95.7 FM and AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app is where we sound our best. Also on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. But for our video stream viewers on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester and our stream on Twitch, by the way, like, follow, subscribe, leave a comment. We need one of those signs for every time I forget to turn your microphone on when you do your sports update, because our studio is still a work in progress. And I don't even know if you catch it or realize it because
I'm hearing it okay.
You're hearing it in your headphones. I listen at a high volume. I don't know what volume you listen to your headphones on. I go.
I'm all the way up here. I could use more actually.
Really?
So, yeah.
But I always feel bad because you'll do your sports update. It didn't happen this last time because I'm aware of it. But generally speaking, almost like once a show, you used to have a controller to turn your microphone on your side of the board, and our new studio doesn't have that. It's not functioning that way just yet. It will. It will eventually.
No, we just have we have this thing. It's a little electrical tape. So there's we're up and functioning, but it's not 100% done.
Right. We're like the Death Star in Return of the Jedi right now. It's not completed, but you could see the workings of it, and it looks nice. We're ready. But there's still this issue that I have with remembering to turn your mic on. So we need one of those signs so that we can just keep track of how many days between incidents we've had. And
all right, so what I'll do is
over to 0 days.
Like start flailing my arms and everything. Like turn on the mic.
I mean, I'm engaged and I'm focused, but I'm also like thinking ahead to what I need to grab for this or what audio I'm going to look for this or whatever it is. So yes, and like anybody, we get caught up in our phone or get caught up in whatever it is that's distracting us rather than being present and being in the moment. So, Gino, I apologize for all the times that I forgot to turn your mic on.
You don't have to worry about that because we are going to be on location beginning Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. Mm-hmm. The first of how many live shows?
How many? It's almost as if the Bills listen to the Sports Bar.
9 times.
9 shows out at St. John Fisher
Derek Boyko listens to the Sports Bar, and he knew that the right amount of shows for us to be there, right amount of practices for us to broadcast live from will be 9.
9 times.
We're looking forward to it, man. It's Wednesday, St. John Fisher University. And by the way, while you're there, don't be a stranger. If you see us, say hey. You'll see our little broadcast setup is there in the Pelicano Pavilion, right behind the field. Stop over and say hello. You'll usually see us talking to somebody.
If you are an autograph seeker, then this is like the hint. Oh, I've never been. Okay, well, here's what you need to know is that, hey, practice is wrapping up. You want to go over to the field that isn't being used, Groundy Stadium, and try to get a spot somewhere along the ring of the stadium because that's where players would like to go and sign. And they'll just go down the row, and
it's on the way to the locker room for them.
Yeah, and understand this, too. Like, if you're an adult, no, they're going to sign for kids, all right? Don't be pushing kids out of the way. But I'm just bringing that up because that's also, we're kind of facing the Groundy Stadium portion of the setup there. So if you look at the pavilion and there's so many autograph seekers that are right around us, Danger. They're trying to flag down whoever is coming up to our set there.
Yeah, and I would also say that you stand a better chance of getting an autograph early in camp versus later in camp.
Oh, for not the last day. Like, if you're planning to go to the last day, no. Everybody is going out.
And not only that, like, at that point, they're like, okay, we're ready.
Also, too, like, it happened every year. I get somebody reaching out to me. I'm not trying to be mean, but we can't help you get Josh Allen's autograph. I'm sorry. Every year, somebody will reach out. Hey, can you get me?
We didn't even take a selfie with Josh Allen last year. That would have been in poor form, right?
Right. You can't do that. It's like literally in your credential because in order for you to get access, you can't be covering the team and then be a fan on the other hand. That's just not in the rules. So if you reach out to Danger and I and say, hey, can you help me help my kid? No, we can't do that. This is part of our arrangement.
Yeah, well, our job is it's a privilege, really, to be able to do what we're going to be able to do here over the course of the next few weeks from St. John Fisher and watching this team practice on a near daily basis and sharing what we see as much as we can share with you what we see on the field starting Wednesday. And we look forward to football. I mean, if you're a sports fan, if you're a football fan, this is the time of year where your eyes get a little bit wide. And you heard Riddick earlier in Gene's update mention how it's like Christmas. You survived. You survived the doldrums of the summer with no football.
Oh,
it's back.
Of course, too. And then what's the highlight every year, Sean? If I have to see this one more damn time. Oh, 5 o'clock, there it is. There's Patrick Mahomes rolling out to his left and just eating it down the field to Xavier Worthy. Oh, my gosh. Did you remember that the Bills traded their rights away there and the Chiefs? Why would you do a trade with the Kansas City Chiefs? And look, ha, 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 ha. Okay, yeah, that was 11 on 11 when you can't hit Patrick Mahomes. And
yeah, that was, I mean, when I watched that highlight, I mean, it's a beautiful pass and a great catch. Resulted in a touchdown. Really bad defense and a quarterback that knew no matter what, I'm going to be able to step into this because nobody's hitting me. But that's the time of year that we're in right now, right? Like if that highlight was Caleb Williams to Roma Dunze, I'd be puffing my chest out a little bit.
Oh, gosh, if you had a crossing pattern and then turning up the field, Keon Coleman, oh, wow, look at that muscle. Yeah,
it really is Mad Libs. You could take the highlight and you could take the caption to the highlight and insert your favorite team, and chances are every team will have at least one of those highlights to share here during the course of training camp. So we don't overreact to it. Now, if it happened in a game, if Patrick Mahomes is out there against a first-team defense and is able to do that with Worthy, and we always use that Mahomes to Tyreek Hill play against the Falcons in that preseason to kind of like, from a fantasy perspective, when you look at it, you're like, ooh, they could make some sweet music together, those two.
Oh, becoming a regular on the show tomorrow. Just a sidebar here. Michael F. Florio, NFL Network.
Oh,
join
nice.
us once again tomorrow. And we're going to try to keep you up to date on fantasy. I mean, my gosh, to have Michael F. Florio on with us. The Chiefs target distribute. Kelsey's going to get his, but really? Like, Rashee Rice is going to be supplanted by Worthy or whoever else is in there. Hollywood Brown's there as well. Like, how do you figure that out? That's going to be one of the questions we're going to.
Yeah, boy, for all the off-field issues with Rushy Rice, he's still on the team, right?
There's a reason. He's
No
still on
suspension,
the team, yeah.
right? No suspension coming that we know of. Like, that guy's probably your one next to Kelsey. I mean, the way he came on last year, that's an interesting angle that we'll explore with Michael F. Flory of NFL Network. He stops by the Sports Bar to talk fantasy football tomorrow afternoon at 4:25. And also, since we're promoting tomorrow's show, Matt Perino makes a stop into the Sports Bar. First of regular Tuesday visits during the football season.
Yeah, and Matt, now look, we love Matt, and he's got, I don't want to spoil it, but he's got details on a Rochester appearance. So Matt Perino is going to be getting together at some point during camp, and I don't know. I think I might be stopping by. Like, we'll let Matt explain.
All right, we'll get into that. Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Standard joins us tomorrow afternoon at 3:25. What else do we have happening today? I mean, the biggest kind of NFL headline comes out of Green Bay, and I don't know that a lot of people anticipated that Jordan Love would be a hold-in at the start of his team's training camp, but that's where we are.
I feel like this is a story that we all kind of look past because, wait a second, didn't he get a fifth? Oh, that's right. They gave him like kind of a bridge deal, right? Like they weren't ready to commit to the fifth year or not ready to commit long-term. They didn't know what they had. And good on Jordan Love. He balled last year, and he's ready.
What is he was scheduled to make this year is, when I say the number, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And I think even the Packers brass kind of look at it like, oh, yeah, we got to get something done here. $10.5 million for Jordan Love this year. Are you kidding me? He's worth double that, at least.
Well, so Jordan Love is holding in. And sometimes during the course of the show, I will give a take. I am not moving the goalpost, but I just put 2 hours of thought into this, right? No. I hate that phrase. And what I said earlier was, well, wait a second. They're gonna figure this out. It's all gonna be fine. But what if you're Jordan Love and you're doing this, and it gets to a point 2 weeks from now, I'm like, you know what? I'm good, boys. I'm gonna play. Now, they could tag him. They could go down that road like they did with Dak Prescott, but you go down that road, you're going to be making one way or another. What if there isn't a deal here for Jordan Love? That is in the realm of possibility. I'd also say this too. Like, I get why Jordan Love is doing this. You know who reports tomorrow? Miami Dolphins. Are we 100% sure there's not going to be any drama in Miami with Tua Tagovailoa? And he needs a new contract too.
Yeah, you're right. Well, it also comes at a time when they just broke the bank for Kenny Clark, their defensive tackle. Said a lot of glowing things about him as they extended him. Big contract for Kenny Clark. And now I would imagine that in Green Bay that Jordan Love will get his in short order. I mean, considering that they kind of gave him a prove-it deal with Rodgers out of the picture. A trial run season. Here you go. Let's see what you can do. Because we saw Jordan Love while Rodgers was still there. Ain't look good. He didn't inspire any confidence.
You saw a little bit, but then at the beginning of last year, mid-October, like, oh my gosh, they made a big mistake. But this can happen, Danger. Sometimes the curve takes a little longer, and then once it clicked in, when it clicked in for me, where like, oh, this is going to be a problem, was Thanksgiving. That was the one game I think we all can kind of sit down and watch, and they're going toe-to-toe with the Lions, and they're great offense, and oh, this is Jordan Love, and oh, this is a nice collection of young talent he's got at the skill position. It a lot of optimism for the Packers, and then what we didn't see coming is, oh, contract issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Gutekunst, their GM, not in front of this.
Or at least more reactive than proactive. I think you could have been proactive, but maybe you're waiting to see what that Tua number looks like, or you're waiting to see. If you're smart, you set the market yourself, but I don't think Jordan Love is a $40 million a year guy just yet either, right?
Yeah, so
the thing that's weird is that a guy like Daniel Jones will get the deal that he got, and I would say Jordan Love, with one good season under his belt, is probably worth at least what Daniel Jones got, right?
Jordan, one good year. I mean, it's like 8 games last year. He was really good. Like MVP good, if you extrapolated that over an 18-week season. Is that enough to go pay him? That's an interesting way you put it there, proactive against reactive. If there's one position in sports you got to be proactive. Like, what are you doing?
Well, it's Green Bay, and they've kind of dealt with this position their own way for the better part of 30 years here. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt in terms of how they want to deal with their franchise quarterbacks. They've got a pretty good track record of it. When you look around the league, there are plenty of teams that wish they had Green Bay's problem of their franchise quarterback holding in to start training camp. Ask Washington how many quarterbacks they've started here over the course of the last 10, 15 years. Not good. So that's the story out of Green Bay. You have kind of the opposite story in Baltimore where you have John Harbaugh. I mean, depends how you want to view it. I guess you could view it as putting an unneeded amount of pressure on his MVP quarterback, Lamar Jackson, propping him up, saying that the expectation is for him to be the best quarterback ever. Paraphrasing, but along those lines.
Well, every year I feel like we get to the end of the Ravens season and you're doing the blame assessment pie and you're pointing at the quarterback, whether that's, okay, he's a rookie, but that's the reason they got blown out by the Chargers. Oh my gosh, they lost to the Titans. The Titans, we were the 1 seed. And then you get to last year and you're thinking this is the year they finally get over the hump because this is a weakened Chiefs team. This isn't the Chiefs of come on. No, Lamar Jackson wasn't good in that game.
You had some turnovers.
Yeah.
The the Zay Flowers turnover sticks in my mind as like, can't have it.
But you got to rise above it if you're the quarterback, and you can't be slamming your helmet and doing everything else. So he's a quarterback danger that at 27 to have 2 MVPs already under his belt. Okay, there's something to this. This guy is electric. He is everything. He's not that in the postseason when you're playing the best defenses and the best head coaches and coordinators when you get to that point. And the way I look at it is, hey, we're not talking. You can't look at who's in the postseason or what. In order to talk about that, you got to get to the postseason first. And what every head coach in this league will tell you is it's just whatever's in front of you today. Put in the work today. Today, and then you get to week 1, and then we're not talking about a game in the distance here. So what I see, Danger, is let's prop up Lamar Jackson. Let's stack good practices. Let's get a win week 1. Let's start stacking wins. You know what? Whatever. We're not talking. We'll worry about January when we get to January with Lamar Jackson. But in order to get to that point, you got to win.
Had a good conversation with Alex Brasky, the Batavia Daily News, and Bills Digest, also 13 Web Sports, and BuffaloPlus.com's Dan Fates, kind of previewing Bills training camp. And the name that we kind of threw out at them is Damar Hamlin. We're well over a year now removed from his cardiac event. Didn't see a ton of him on the field last year, but last year you had Poyer and you had Hyde. So is this a year where you see Hamlin not just earning keeping a spot on this roster, but earning some more playing time when you consider that you're right now projected to start Taylor Rapp and Mike Edwards with maybe Cole Bishop?
Let me ask the question to you or anybody else that wants to join us at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. In terms of the range of possibilities, and I'm talking from that guy could start for this team to that guy could be cut. He's number 1 on the list, right? Yeah. Like, I don't know what to expect. And, yes, he got glowing marks there from in minicamp. But if you want to go back to, the 2 years ago before that night in Cincinnati, he was okay. He's undersized. I don't view him as nothing more than a backup.
Made a lot of tackles. You would assume that he understands the defense at this point in his career. But the size thing was that he did get thrown around quite a bit. I just remember seeing him get blocked to the moon a handful of times through that stretch of games, and I wonder about the size and the strength. But he's had a lot of time to recover. He's had a lot of time to work out and to get his body into the shape that it needs to be in. And maybe we're viewing it wrong and thinking to ourselves, well, there's no range of outcomes here, Gino. The range of outcomes, he's making the team and he's contributing in some way, shape, or form to this this roster.
Did he contribute last year?
I mean, I remember the one play.
Well, the answer is no.
Yeah,
He
wasn't he wasn't inactive for a handful of
years. Like he made a play in the preseason. Honestly, I think that it's fascinating to me, and we're all going to be watching.
Yeah, I wonder who else kind of fits that criteria, that wide range of outcomes heading into camp, a player who could start and contribute or be cut. I think of a player like Dwayne Smoot, who was brought in to be a pass rusher, could see him starting because he's done it before, but I also believe that's a guy that with his injury history, and if he doesn't show up at camp, maybe that's somebody you move on from. I don't know. I mean, like there are more guys that have that range. Eli Anku is another name that I think to myself, oh, yeah, I mean, in a pinch, he probably could start. Not ideal, but he probably could start. Could also be a guy that's on the cutting room floor come cut down day.
Well, if you go back to Hamlin, the way I kind of view that is, all right, let's work our way backwards. The way backwards is Cole Bishop is going to be a starter, but when? I can't answer that. Is it week 1? Is it next year? So if it's week 1, if they're like, whoa, and if Osiris Torrance took the torch pretty quickly last year, talking a little Damar Hamlin with Greg in Rochester. What's up, Greg?
Hey, guys. What's going on?
How are you?
I promise I'm not outside your window this time. But
hey, guys, look out the window.
Danger, look down right into your bottom area by the fridge. I'm right there.
Uh-huh.
No, but man, this Hamlin thing has been something I've thought about for a long time. I was like, when is it going to come to this? You know, when are we going to have to be like, are we going to lose him? Are we going to keep him? It's a tough one. So I guess it depends on how he performs. You have to leave it at that, and just like every other player.
I mean,
right?
Greg, you're every other player, yes, but when the Bills move on, and I'm saying when because nobody plays in this league forever. It's not a sports story. It's a news story. Like, hey, do you remember this, everybody? Yeah, the Bills released him or whatever it may be. So there, honestly, and I would say this too, Greg. Thanks for the call, and thanks for not creeping on us today.
Not Muncie bombing us today.
Yeah, right.
He didn't say the Bills need a big, strong safety who can make tackles. A guy like Chuck Muncie, though Chuck Muncie was a running back.
Did the Bills keep Damar Hamlin from the PR standpoint last year?
Well, I mean, they believe that he can play football. Otherwise, I mean, listen, man, I hearing Dan Fates say what he said about Damar Hamlin, the idea that he could be a starter week 1. I mean, I haven't heard anybody else throw that out there. But you're right. That's the range of outcomes that we're talking about with number 3. We're talking about a guy who could be a starter week 1, could also be with another team week 1. I don't know that there's anybody that, when you look at this roster, that really crystal clear has that wide range of outcomes. It'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I cannot wait. Bills players coming in. If you've driven by Fisher there, they're ready to go. The tents are up. Activity over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can't wait. Do you think turkey burgers day 1 in the cafeteria?
Yes.
Turkey burgers.
Just to get us talking.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. The thing, and Fisher's smart. They're putting out their best. They want you to say, boy, the food is good here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? When little Susie gets to college, right?
Uh-huh.
No kid. Nobody names their kid Susie anymore, but you get my point.
Susie's not a real name.
Her name is Susan.
Or Suzanne.
Correct.
Or Elizabeth.
But Sue is not a real name.
Sue is not a real name.
Sue is not a real name.
We could do an entire show on names that aren't a real name, and I won't stop laughing. Sue is not a real name. Let's get to a round of shots next in the sports bar.
This coming across today, the NBA media rights, right? Oh, hey, all set and done. We're gonna wait a second here. Wait a second. Could our favorite show inside the NBA actually be sticking around? Oh yeah. This could be headed to the courts. Can't wait. We'll give you the latest here. The Atlanta Braves, my goodness, they are like on one leg right now, but they're still winning games somehow. Oh, we talked about this earlier. We'll give you the payoff to the tease here. Which team has the weirdest setup? One in which they actually go away for camp, but you're not allowed to go. Watch.
I have an idea of what team it might be, and I only believe it might be that team because they're always unorthodox in everything that they do, and they reek of dysfunctionality. That's not a word, dysfunction. They reek of dysfunction.
They reek of dysfunction.
Yeah.
You're on the right path.
Yeah. If you put your brain to it a little bit here, you might be able to figure out what that team is.
Can you imagine, though, like we're going to go away. Why? Well, just to really, really get away.
Yeah.
Really get away. Nobody there.
That's coming up next with a round of shots. Last call. You can have the final say in the sports bar when we get to you at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
We're 2 days away from practice at St. John Fisher University. Actually, report day coming up tomorrow at St. John Fisher University. Major League Baseball today, one final. The Yankees win big over Tampa Bay, 9-1. Carlos Rodon with the win. Juan Soto homering twice. Anthony Volpe and DJ LeMahieu also homering for New York. The Subway Series resumes tomorrow night. Tonight, it's the Mets down in Miami. The Mets looking to salvage a split in their 4-game series. The Rochester Red Wings swept in their 3-game series in Syracuse. The Wings are back home tomorrow night to take on Lehigh Valley. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com, where today you can save half off to Lasertron in Henrietta. For this and other great deals, log on to GetMyPerks.com today. Gene Battaglia and the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Rochester's home for live sports and the best sports talk anywhere. The Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Happy hour continues on The Fan. Time for a round of shots in the sports bar.
Yeah, sounds like we're going to have a legal battle, Danger, in the next round of NBA media rights. Today, Warner Brothers Discovery, a.k.a. TNT, making a right to keep the NBA rights, making a play to keep the rights, telling the NBA it's going to match Amazon's bid for the package of games.
Really?
Yeah, which apparently there is some right of first refusal. Now, the company today, Warner Brothers, says it's going to match Amazon's bid, which is $1.8 billion per year. Andrew Marchand reporting that it is the Amazon deal that TNT is targeting. Now, the NBA says, quote, we received WBD's, Warner Brothers Discovery's proposal, are in the process of reviewing it. What's not clear is, well, that's a streaming package Amazon is putting out. This is a TNT package, so is that the way? And the NBA is going to say, hey, we're moving on here.
Doesn't Discovery have their own streaming package?
They must.
I think they do.
They must.
I think they do. Because today I learned that Warner Brothers and Discovery own TNT and TBS. I had no idea. I can't.
You can't.
I couldn't keep up with.
Yeah.
You know, I somewhere I still have Ted Turner running around with Jane Fonda. You know, thinking that he's the guy calling all the shots. Is he even with us anymore? I don't even know.
Ted Turner. I'm sure. Like, when did Ted Turner die? Let's see here. Ted Turner. I'm gonna guess 2009.
Yeah, Ted Turner is probably a personality that wouldn't hold up in 2024 if I'm not mistaken.
Oh my gosh, my bad. Sorry, Mr. Turner. He's 85.
He's still with us. Yeah,
he's still with.
Well,
he's with us, but like he hasn't had anything to do with us for now long.
He cashed out, right? I mean,
Yeah.
He took all his properties. He cashed out, and good for Discovery. I mean, a network built on Shark Week, Dirty Jobs, and MythBusters, and they're now in the driver's seat. They control their destiny here as to whether or not they can continue to have the NBA on their platform.
Gosh, I would imagine like Adam Silver just, oh, you're kidding me, rolling his eyes that this came through.
Right, because if you're trying to tell fans where to watch your games, it's a lot easier to say on the Amazon Prime app versus the Discovery app.
Yeah, or their play will be, well, we'll put it on the Discovery app, but we'll also put it on TNT.
Right. What other? Yeah, like do they have an arrangement with another larger app where their content can be seen? I don't know that they do.
Well, who's to blame for all this? It's the NBA. Don't put a right of first refusal. What are you doing there? Who put that in there?
Well, the good news with that is if they somehow do find a way to wrangle that deal away from Amazon, maybe that means we get more Chuck.
Yeah, that's the whole idea.
Do you think? I mean, do you think Chuck will stick around, or do you think this is like already opened up the window to him saying, I'm done, and he's already cashed out and he's ready to hang it up?
I think they have a lot of fun on that show.
They really do.
They do. Like I don't think it's an act. So as long as you're having fun, enjoying the company of the guys you're with,
does it really work?
Yeah.
Right. Kind of like us here in the sports bar.
Sort of.
Gino. Man.
Sorry, that was too easy. Another problem for the Atlanta Braves. They're going to be without second baseman Ozzie Albies for roughly the next 8 weeks. He's got a fractured wrist. So Atlanta picked off the scrap heap, second baseman Whit Merrifield. Merrifield signed with Philadelphia this year, 1 year, $8 million, but he was released. He was hitting just $199. So Atlanta's going to pay just $740,000 for this move. The Phillies responsible for the remaining dollars. Now, unlike the NFL, contracts actually guaranteed in Major League Baseball. Perhaps no team in baseball has been hurt more by injury this season than Atlanta. Out for the season, Ronald Acuna, Spencer Strider, Michael Harris has been hurt. Also going on IL, Max Fried over the weekend. Atlanta hosting Cincinnati tonight.
You have Dan Fates hate watching his own team.
Just because
they're
they'll get
injured.
in. Yeah, they'll get in and they're not going to do anything.
Yeah, that's tough.
Xander Schauffele had the perfect response after winning the Claret Jug. That's what they give you for winning the Open. I just can't wait to drink out of it.
It's my guy.
You remember, he won the PGA Championship, subsequently having a beverage out of the Wanamaker Trophy. And he's going to make this his thing then.
Yeah, he should. And we don't talk enough about how great of a season he's having. For as much as we want to talk about Scheffler winning all the tournaments that he's won and the way he's won them, Schauffele's won 2 majors against the best, the actual best in the world. I think that's more impressive than what Scheffler has done this year.
Right.
Scheffler's been great.
Yeah, that you win 2 majors, you should be the golfer of the year. I don't care what Scheffler's been doing.
I think so. And Schauffele, the defending gold medalist in Olympic golf, if you were to tell me right now, hey, would you take Schauffele or the field? I might take Xander to repeat and to get a gold medal in Paris at the Olympics as well. That's impressive. And also, stay down, Euros. Team USA golfers sweeping the majors this year. That's the first time I think that's happened since, what did they say, 82?
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
That's insane.
That's great.
Yeah.
Go Ryder Cup here. Okay, the payoff here at Danger. Which NFL team, I'll let you answer this here. Let's see if you know, has the weirdest setup for training camp this year?
It's got to be the Raiders. It has to be the Raiders because that guy running things there, it's the inmates are running the asylum. It's crazy. It's the Raiders have always been this way.
The answer is you are correct. It's the Raiders. They want to go away. Like 100-degree summer heat in Nevada. That's rough to work outside. Is there enough space inside? So Vegas, Las Vegas Raiders, they're going to head to Oxnard, California, which is about 40 miles outside of downtown L.A. Fine, great. But since territorial rights are owned by the Chargers and the Rams for a 75-mile radius, the Raiders, even though they're at Costa Mesa College there, the Raiders can do no promotion, zero promotion for this. No fans are allowed in, with the exception of few VIPs. No advertising sales. They can't even let California media in. Only those from Nevada that cover the Raiders that make the trek are allowed in. It really is a closed lockdown camp.
That checks all the boxes. That is so Raiders. Like, you'd love to be able to have fans there, I would think. You know, it's probably good for business if you're able to get fans to plunk down some of their money when they come to camp.
I got to think there's got to be somewhere 70, like if you looked at the radius of Los Angeles, somewhere 75 miles away, that you could actually have a real camp.
I'm trying to figure out how many teams still actually go away to camp. And I'm struggling with it. The one, we know about the Bills.
Mm-hmm. The Steelers, definitely. They go to Latrobe every year.
The Steelers are, St. Vincent College. You know how you can tell if a team is going away? There's no corporate sponsorship to their training facility at their home.
I misspoke. Oxnard is where the Cowboys go, not the Raiders. So the Raiders are Costa Mesa College, somewhere in suburban LA.
But that's still within.
That's outside the radius there.
The Saints go to Cal Irvine.
Yeah, they always used to go to Wisconsin. I don't know why. Probably the same deal, the heat or whatever. They can't get the work done.
Yeah.
The Chargers, they're at the Bolt. Oh, that's really what they're calling there.
The Rams go to Loyola Marymount.
Yeah, there aren't too many teams left here. Like, this is really, really one of the last ones.
I guess I'm doing this exercise so that we remember that this is fleeting and we have this in our community, and I hope we have it for a long, long time. But I just look at dollar signs when I see, the Miller Electric Center in Jacksonville or the TCO Performance Center for the Minnesota Vikings.
When the new stadium's open, you got the training facility there. They'll have They have everything they need right now.
The Quest Diagnostics Training Facility, your home of Giants training camp.
Finally, we are in favor of second chances here in the sports bar. That is fair to say. Tom Brenneman is getting a second chance, Danger. It was back in 2020. He was fired as a Cincinnati Reds announcer for using a slur on a hot mic. This fall, he's back on a national platform. He's going to call ACC football games for the CW network. Part of what went viral was, it wasn't just the slur. It was the awkward apology. Do you remember that? Where they actually put him in front of the mic, and while the action is going on, do you remember that?
Yeah.
Where like literally, like he has to be like, and what I said was terrible, and there's a long fly ball by Castellanos, and it's home run. Back to what I was saying. I'm really, really sorry.
Yeah. I do remember it. I'm trying to see if we have it somewhere, and I don't know that we do. It was an awkward apology in the moment, and a lot of times that apology draws more attention to what you said, which was unintentional. What he said was, it wasn't unintentional. He said what he said. It was just over a hot mic, which I'm sure he didn't know it was a hot mic. Doesn't make it all right. What he said wasn't all right, but you draw more attention to it with the in-the-moment apology.
They didn't do him any favors with that.
That's right.
Yeah.
If that was their thing, if their thing was, you have to apologize for that now, that puts him in a pretty tough spot.
Well, you can't write this stuff. So he's going to cover the ACC. One of the schools in the ACC is Boston College. Who's their starting quarterback? He's a junior by the name of Thomas Castellanos. No relation to Nick Castellanos.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's look, where would any of us be if we didn't have a second chance? Good for Tom Brenneman. I thought he was very good at his job. I'm not going to talk about the man personally. I don't know anything about him personally, but I thought for what his job, he was a good play-by-play guy. And getting a chance there. Boston College. You know how I knew that there was a Castellanos on Boston College? Because I played him in college football 25 over the weekend.
I thought you were in Syracuse. You were Florida State.
That's right.
You. Florida State, the guy, the school that's going to tear apart the ACC.
Yeah.
Greedy Florida State.
I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about when I was a kid, what schools did I like growing up in Minnesota? Florida State was like Coach Prime was playing at the
I
time.
thought maybe, let's see here, wild guess, Minnesota.
Nah. No, go for football, hockey. That's it. For football, I liked Florida State. They were fun.
Northwestern.
Do they still have a football program? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sure they do.
No. Like the story, I was going to, like at some point during shots, one of these times, they don't have a home field because they tore that. Yeah, so literally they're building a temporary stadium. It's gonna look really, really strange.
If you missed Dan Fates, if you missed Alex Brasky, you can get those conversations wherever you pod. Search out the Sports Bar, including the free-to-download Odyssey app. That's AUDACY. Tomorrow, Matt Perino, 3:25. Michael F. Flory to talk some fantasy football at 4:25. Up next, JR Sport Brief on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
The new Yamaha Wave Runners are at the region's